Ned Stark stood in the solar assigned to him, long shadows of the late afternoon creeping like silent witnesses across the stone floor. The damp warmth of King's Landing clung to him as he pressed the small scrap of parchment between his fingers, reading the last lines he had scrawled, a final piece of the puzzle that confirmed what his heart had long dreaded. Joffrey Baratheon was not King Robert's trueborn son, nor were Myrcella or Tommen, for that matter. The children of Cersei Lannister were fathered by Jaime Lannister, her own brother. Ned held the secret in his hand, and its weight was heavier than any sword. A bustle of activity fluttered in the antechamber, the servants gathering cups of wine, the master of whisperers drifting by with a polite nod of his head, the occasional guard clearing his throat. This moment was the quiet eye of a storm Ned had not asked for but found himself swirling in nonetheless. He recalled the words that had come to him through the old book he had studied, genealogies of the great houses, hair color, lineages tracked for centuries. Black of hair, black of hair, black of hair, until Joffrey, who was conspicuously golden like a Lannister lion. The telling sign lay hidden in lineage records older than some of the oak trees in the godwood of Winterfell. He recalled the cryptic promises he had made to the late King Robert just days before, who had gone off boar hunting, none the wiser that the very seat of his power might soon be contended. Robert had entrusted Ned with being Lord Regent in the event of his death, and yet it all hinged on the notion that Joffrey Baratheon was Robert's lawful heir. Ned knew that was not so. In the hush of that solar, as he listened to the distant echo of footsteps in the hallway, he realized that to remain silent any longer was to betray the very honor he held dear. Too much blood had been spilled for such secrets. He had tried, in his heart, to settle this matter quietly. He had confronted Cersei Lannister privately, urging her to flee, to spare herself, to spare the children the shame and punishment. He had thought that perhaps the Queen, in her maternal instinct, would make haste to leave King's Landing, and that Robert would never have to know the fullness of her betrayal. Yet she had stood with her pride and told him in so many words that if he told Robert, all the city would burn. He had expected that. But what he did not expect was how swiftly everything would progress in the next day or two. He heard of the hunting accident. Robert was wounded. Poison, perhaps? Or merely the foolish drunkenness that overcame him once he was away from the city. No matter. Robert lay near death, and Ned had to act. He turned, letting the parchment slip from his fingers onto the desk. Instead of summoning only Peter Baelish or confiding in Renly Baratheon alone, Ned had arranged for a meeting of the small council in the Tower of the Hand, his domain for the moment. He could not, in good conscience, hide behind a corner to spin this in some cunning, underhanded manner. He was not made for intrigues. He was not a spider weaving webs in the dark. Honor demanded truth. And so, in that moment, Eddard Stark decided that in front of the small council, before the eyes of those who served as the pillars of the realm's governance, he would reveal the lineage that would change the future of the Seven Kingdoms. A single rap on the door alerted him. Jory Castle opened it and bowed. "My lord, they are assembled in the chamber." Ned nodded, a subdued gratitude in his eyes. He took a breath, forcing himself to remain calm, though the pounding of his heart felt like a kettle drum in a dark hall. He walked out of the solar and down the corridor to a modestly sized chamber with a long oak table. The men of the small council, those who had arrived at least, were seated. Lord Renly Baratheon stood with arms folded near the hearth, his youthful face etched with concern. Peter Littlefinger Baelish lounged to one side of the table, eyes half-lidded in his perpetual look of polite amusement. Grand Maester Pycelle was seated, fingers drumming on his chain of office, and Varys, the master of whisperers, held his hands together as if in supplication. Lord Commander Barristan Selmy lingered by the door, one hand on the hilt of his sword out of habit. Ned took his seat at the head of the table, resting his hands on the wood. He could see the curiosity in their eyes. Something about the weathered lines on his face must have told them this was not a routine meeting. Outside, King's Landing bristled with rumors. Robert's wound was dire. The Lannisters were mustering forces. The Gold Cloaks were uncertain whom to follow in the days to come. The city itself seemed to tremble on the threshold of chaos. Ned began quietly, "I thank you for coming. We all know King Robert has suffered a grave injury. The hunt went poorly, and he has been gored by a boar. The maesters tend him as best they can, but I fear," he exhaled slowly, "I fear our king does not have long." Pycelle's eyebrows twitched. Yes, my lord, it is as you say. The injuries are mortal unless the gods show mercy. I have done all I can with potions and poultices, but the wound is beyond mortal skill. Renly frowned. I spoke with my brother. He is feverish, but he tries to speak, and he groans about the boar and the wine. He is full of regrets in his delirium. A quaver in his voice made him sound younger than he was. I do not know how much time he has, but each hour seems to slip away like sand through an hourglass. Ned inclined his head to him. We must be swift, then. The realm must not be left leaderless. Robert named me protector of the realm while he lingers. I intend to fulfill my duty. In the corner, Littlefinger stirred. There is the matter of the succession, Lord Stark. We all know Joffrey is the presumed heir. And if Robert passes, that means the crown will fall upon the brow of Joffrey Baratheon. He spoke the name with a certain dryness to his tone. Has the king said anything more specific on that matter? He wrote it down. In fact, Ned answered. A royal decree signed, though he was on the edge of consciousness when he pressed the quill. His eyes flickered briefly to Renly, who gave a small nod, confirming that Ned had that decree in his possession. But I come to you all now because I have discovered something that changes everything. I did not wish to reveal it like this, but we are out of time. Robert may not survive the night. I cannot, in good conscience, stand by. Varys, ever watchful, leaned forward. My Lord Hand, you are an honorable man. We trust that what you have to say is of the utmost importance. But I beg you, speak plainly. His voice was soft, unobtrusive, yet the intensity in his eyes betrayed how keenly he listened. Ned cleared his throat. It concerns the parentage of Prince Joffrey, and indeed all the royal children. He glanced around the table. I have discovered evidence that they are not Robert's children. A stunned hush fell upon them. Renly's mouth parted in shock. Pycelle's hand trembled, though whether from old age or alarm, Ned could not guess. Barristan Selmy's grip on his sword hilt tightened, and the old knight stood straighter, eyes wide. Varys said nothing, though his expression was one of studied neutrality, as though he had half expected such a revelation. Only Littlefinger retained that faintly bored smile, though Ned noticed a small flicker of tension in the man's posture. Renly found his voice first. What do you mean? Not Robert's? Is this? Are you certain, Lord Stark? Ned nodded grimly. I am certain. I have proofs, both in private word and recorded in the lineage books. It is known that King Robert's seed is strong. All his bastards have dark hair, a certain cast to the features. But Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen have none of that. They are gold of hair, like the Lannisters. And there is another matter. He hesitated, for he did not relish speaking of incest so openly. Their father is Jaime Lannister. The twins, Jaime and Cersei. That is the real truth behind their golden locks. He allowed the words to hang in the air like a chill wind sweeping through. The implications were enormous. The rightful heir of the throne, presumed to be Joffrey, was in fact the product of a taboo affair between siblings. It rendered Joffrey a bastard and an abomination in the eyes of the faith. That meant no rightful claim to the throne. That meant the Baratheon line would die with Robert if he did not survive. It meant chaos in the streets once word spread. Peter Baelish sucked in a quiet breath. If that is indeed true, it changes everything. The Lannisters will not sit idly by. That is why I had hoped to deal with it quietly, Ned admitted. But events have moved too swiftly. The Queen has not fled. Robert was mortally wounded before I could inform him of what I discovered. If Joffrey takes the throne, we will have a pretender wearing the crown. Renly spoke again, voice tight with suppressed anger. My brother is dying, and the realm is about to be in the hands of a bastard born of incest. Could there be a fouler betrayal? He looked to Ned, fear and ambition warring in his eyes. We must prevent it. We must not allow Joffrey to be crowned. Grand Maester Pycelle's mouth opened and closed. Are we so certain? Lady Cersei has always been devout about the fatherhood of her children. The realm has believed. He has the proof, Grand Maester, Varys interjected, voice calm yet edged with finality. And I have heard rumors. Even before this day, my little birds have sung of the Queen's proclivities. But I dared not speak it aloud until I heard it from a man of unassailable honor. Ned's gaze flicked to the eunuch, knowing full well that Varys's little birds likely had known for quite some time. It angered Ned that so many around him played these games of secrets. But anger served no purpose now. The realm teetered on a knife's edge, and the only way to keep it from plunging into chaos was for them to act swiftly and decisively. Barristan Selmy, looking grave, finally spoke. What would you have us do, Lord Stark? King Robert is not expected to recover. Once he dies, the throne is vacant. Joffrey sits next in line, or so the realm believes. If you denounce him publicly, the Lannisters will move at once. They have the gold cloaks, do they not? Or at least the loyalty of many among them. Lord Tywin has a great host in the west, and Jaime commands a portion near Riverrun. War could break out overnight. I know, Ned said somberly. I had thought to rely on the City Watch. Lord Baelish assured me he could sway them with gold if necessary. But that was before I realized how quickly everything would move. I do not yet know where Ser Janos Slint's loyalties lie if things become complicated. Littlefinger offered a thin-lipped grin. Complicated is an understatement, my lord. But yes, gold can buy many loyalties. Even the City Watch can be turned if the price is right or if the right threat is made. But you must be certain that what you do is both lawful and inevitable. If you fail, the Lannisters will not be forgiving. Ned clenched his jaw. He well remembered the advice Baelish had given him about cunning and power. But Baelish's counsel, while useful, often reeked of cynicism. We must do what is just, Ned returned. We must place the rightful heir upon the throne. Robert has other brothers, Stannis is his elder brother, and you, Renly, are the younger. By law, the throne should pass to Stannis if Robert has no true-born children. Stannis is the rightful heir. He paused, considering how he had attempted to contact Stannis already. The man had left the capital, sailing to Dragonstone, perhaps suspicious that something was amiss. Renly's brow furrowed. Stannis is not the most personable man. But yes, if Joffrey is a bastard, then the throne should pass to my brother Stannis. He pressed his lips together as though unsure of whether he liked that. We must proclaim it. But does that not lead to war with the Lannisters? Cersei will never yield quietly. Nor will Tywin. Ned took a careful breath. He had dreaded this question because the truth was as plain as the blood on a butcher's block. It may. But if we do not, then we hand the throne to a usurper. Robert's last will and testament named me protector of the realm. We can hold the city if the City Watch stands with us until Stannis arrives. Then, with the king's seal, we can ensure a lawful transition of power. At that, the room erupted into hushed arguments. Pycelle stammered that the faith would be outraged by the revelation of incest. Varys muttered about the number of gold cloaks that might stand with the Lannisters. Renly insisted that he, too, could gather men if he had a day or two of preparation. Littlefinger merely gazed at Ned with that sly, unreadable expression. Barristan and Selmy reminded them that they must also consider the realm's stability. War could cost thousands of innocent lives. The debate churned, fierce and urgent. Ned let them speak for a moment, for it was critical to hear the varied viewpoints of the small council. This was not a decision to be taken lightly. But each passing moment was a precious spark of time burning away. By the next day, Joffrey, Cersei, and their Lannister allies might already make their move. Finally, Ned rose to his feet. The others quieted. I have not called you here to debate the truth of the matter. That truth is beyond doubt. I called you here to ask for your loyalty to the rightful line. I will see the Lannisters brought to justice for their crimes. I will defend the realm from further treachery. If you are with me, together we can take steps at once. Lord Renly, I would ask you to gather those knights and lords loyal to House Baratheon. Barristan and Selmy, your place is at the king's side for now, but I would ask that you be prepared to defend the king's peace if violence should break out. Varys, I hope your whispers can help us quell any riot that might erupt. Grand Maester Pycelle, I ask that you remain with Robert and see to his final hours. Peter Baelish, he paused, meeting Littlefinger's clever eyes. If you are as skilled as you claim with coin, then use it. By the loyalty of the City Watch if that is what's needed to keep the peace. He expected some immediate dissent, perhaps outright refusal from Littlefinger, but Peter only offered a short nod. As you will, Lord Stark. I'll do what I can, though I trust you will not forget how expensive loyalty can be. Ned's expression hardened. I have not forgotten. We shall see that you are repaid if the City Watch does its duty. Littlefinger bowed his head as though in acquiescence. Renly exhaled, and there was a certain glint in his eye that Ned recognized as ambition and fear. Very well. I will do my part. Though I'd prefer if you would consider me as a candidate as well, should Stannis be, less than ideal to lead. Ned frowned. The line of succession is clear, Lord Renly. I understand your misgivings, but the law is the law. Renly said nothing else, though Ned sensed a tension there, a silent frustration. Renly wanted the throne, or at least the power. But there was no time to delve deeper into that. One crisis at a time. Pycelle coughed weakly. Then, you mean to proclaim this secret as soon as the king dies? The shock will be immense. The small folk. I will not wait for Robert to die. I mean to reveal it as soon as possible, publicly. As protector, I can demand an audience in the throne room with the great lords present. Let Cersei speak in her defense if she dares. Let her deny it, Ned said. But once I show proof and the gold cloaks stand with us, there will be no doubt. Varys murmured, a bold plan, my lord. May the gods protect you, for the Lannisters will surely not. Ned clenched his jaw. May they protect all of us. He stood from the table, signaling that the council was dismissed. Pycelle, Varys, Renly, and the others filed out in uneasy silence, the magnitude of what they had heard pressing down on them like the weight of an entire kingdom. Only Littlefinger lingered, his step slow, his smirk half-formed. Thank you for including me, Baelish said softly, approaching Ned once the chamber was empty of all others. It is quite the revelation to hear such an explosive truth out in the open. You might do well to consider, my lord, how many times men have learned it and done nothing. Perhaps there are reasons men keep secrets. Ned fixed him with a glare. You've known, haven't you? Known is a strong word, my lord. Suspected? Perhaps. But knowledge is rarely free and truths are seldom shared without reason. I do wonder what will happen when you proclaim this to the realm. Fire and blood, I suspect. But you are the noble lord of the north and your sense of honor is commendable. I suppose we shall see. Ned let out a weary breath. I have no taste for these games, Baelish. I do this because I must. I will not let the realm fall to a lie. Peter gave a mocking half-bow. Of course. Do remember, I stand ready to help you secure the city watch. The cost, I imagine, will be high, but you have the treasury at your disposal. For now at least. Ned nodded curtly, not trusting himself to speak more with this man. They left the chamber in opposite directions, each lost in his own thoughts. The sun dipped low behind the red keep, cloaking the city in a warm, ruddy glow. Ned Stark spent the remainder of the evening in quiet preparation. He wrote letters to Stannis, urging him to come at once and stake his rightful claim, for Robert was near death. He also penned a missive to the Lords of the Vale, trusting in his wife's sister Lisa to remain neutral or to offer some form of assistance, though he held little hope, as Lisa was ever fickle. He conferred with Renly once more in a private corridor. Renly seemed agitated, torn between loyalty to his older brother Stannis and a strong desire to seize the moment for himself. As Ned parted from Renly, he spotted the tall, silent figure of Haleen the pyromancer skulking through a side door, escorted by a pair of gold cloaks. Were the Lannisters already making moves to harness wildfire? Or was it something else? His imagination conjured horrifying images of the Mad King's caches of wildfire hidden beneath the city. That was a threat for another time. For now, he needed to keep his focus on the next morning, when he would demand an audience in the throne room. One more night under the same roof as the Vipers, Ned thought grimly. Let the gods watch over me. Cersei did not confront him that evening, nor did Joffrey. Jaime Lannister was still away, having left the capital after his assault on Ned's men in the street days earlier. Tyrion Lannister, the imp, was rumored to be somewhere on the road, possibly captured by Catelyn Stark. The Lannisters were scattered, but they still had deep pockets and cunning. One day, Ned hoped, the realm would not be so full of these intrigues. But that day was not this one. Night fell, and Ned forced himself to rest for a few brief hours, though his sleep was plagued by restless visions. The ghost of Robert roaring with laughter in Winterfell's yard, Lyanna Stark's pale face upon her deathbed, the crypts beneath Winterfell calling to him in voices of stone. He awoke before dawn to the gentle stirring of the city. He rose, donned his lordly attire, and fastened his father's sword, Ice, across his back. Though an executioner's greatsword was not typical in court, he felt the weight gave him resolve. He emerged to find a cluster of his household guard waiting. Jory Castle gave him a grave nod. Lord Stark, the gold cloaks are gathering by the Red Keep gates. We've word from one of our men that the Queen has commanded them to stand ready for any disturbance. Lord Baelish is with them, distributing coin, or so it seems. Ned pursed his lips. If Baelish was doing what he promised, that might secure the city watch's loyalty to Ned, for now. We shall see. Bring enough of our men to stand behind us in the throne room. Let there be no confusion as to our might. Yes, my lord. They made their way to the throne room, the grand space lit by shafts of morning light that poured through high windows. The Iron Throne loomed at the far end, a jagged sculpture of swords and steel. The seat Robert would soon leave vacant, or had left vacant already, Ned wondered. Had the king died in the night? No messenger had come to inform him, but the possibility weighed heavy on his heart. To his surprise, the throne room was already quite full. The gold cloaks lined the walls in neat ranks. Some of the lords and ladies of the court had gathered as well, likely summoned by the queen or by rumor of some announcement. At the foot of the dais stood Cersei Lannister, flanked by Sandor Clegane, the Hound, and behind them, the sullen, golden-haired prince himself, Joffrey. Myrcella and Tommen were absent, perhaps kept away out of caution. Beside Joffrey stood the Kingsguard that remained in the city, Meryn Trant, Boros Blunt. Barristan Selmy was not present. Ned noted with alarm, perhaps at Robert's bedside. Grand Maester Pycelle hovered near, wringing his hands. Cersei's green eyes fixed on Ned the moment he entered. An imperious smile curved her lips. She looked like a lioness ready to pounce. "Lord Stark," she said clearly, her voice echoing in the vaulted hall. "I had thought you would spend the morning at King Robert's side. He has been asking for you. Is that not so, Grand Maester?" Pycelle bowed his head. "Yes, your grace. The king is in a lamentable state." Ned strode forward, his men arrayed behind him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Peter Baelish standing near the gold cloaks, wearing a calmly neutral expression. Renly was there too, behind Ned and to the left, arms folded, scanning the hall. Varys was nowhere to be seen, though Ned suspected the eunuch was lurking in the shadows somewhere. Ned's voice carried through the chamber. "Queen Cersei, I have come to address a matter of the utmost importance, one that concerns the very future of the realm. It cannot wait upon King Robert's passing." He took another step closer to the dais, noticing how the gold cloaks shifted uncertainly. Were they his men or Cersei's? Baelish had assured him he would secure them, but Ned felt doubt gnaw at him. Cersei's smile tightened. "Lord Stark, I do hope you have not listened to vile rumors in these trying times. The king needs peace in his final hours, not a swirl of scandal." Ned turned, so that his voice reached not just the queen but the assembled courtiers as well. "I stand here as the king's hand, named protector of the realm in his own writing, with the great seal affixed. Robert Baratheon, your king, entrusted me with guardianship of the 7 kingdoms in the event of his death. That time is nearly upon us. Yet I have discovered a truth which cannot be buried." He paused, summoning courage. In his mind, he recalled the words of his sister, Lyanna, though she had never said them aloud. "Promise me, Ned." He had promised her many things. Now he was the man who would speak the truth, no matter the cost. "Joffrey Baratheon, whom you name Prince of the Realm, is not King Robert's son." A tremor of gasps rippled through the court. Some exclaimed in disbelief, some in shock. A noblewoman fainted, dropping to her knees, while a cluster of knights began muttering to each other. Ned felt all their eyes upon him. He forged ahead. "He is not the fruit of Robert's seed, but rather the product of an incestuous union between the queen and her brother, Ser Jaime Lannister. All of you have seen how Joffrey lacks the Baratheon features. The truth is plain. King Robert has been cuckolded, deceived. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are not his." Cersei's face was pale as milk, except for 2 spots of crimson burning high on her cheeks. Joffrey let out a shrill exclamation. "He lies!" He made to draw a small dagger at his belt, but the Hound laid a heavy hand on his shoulder. The boy bristled, eyes blazing with hatred at Ned. "Silence!" Cersei hissed, regaining her composure. "This is slander of the worst sort. The Hand has gone mad with grief. Guards, seize him for treason." A moment of breathless suspense followed, in which the gold cloaks shifted as if uncertain. Ned's men gripped their weapons. But then, from the side of the hall, Peter Baelish stepped forward and said softly, "Hold, in the name of Lord Stark." He gestured, and at least half the gold cloaks moved to block the passage of the other half. A line of steel bristled as pikes leveled. Cersei's eyes flicked to them, and she saw that the city watch was not entirely hers. For the first time, a flicker of genuine alarm crossed her face. Ned pressed on, voice steady. "Your children are bastards born of incest, and that means the throne does not belong to them. By all the laws of the realm, it should pass to Lord Stannis Baratheon, Robert's eldest brother. That is the truth you cannot escape, no matter how you try. She lifted her chin, defiant. You fool! Do you know what you have done? The Lannisters will not abide this. I will not abide this. You speak lies in front of half the realm's nobility. Barristan Selmy is not here to confirm or deny. The king is not here. You think your word is enough. Ned answered, I have proof in the royal records. And if that is not enough, every bastard child of Robert's is living proof that the Baratheon seed is always dark. That alone points to the truth of your treachery. He gestured to Grand Maester Pycelle. Grand Maester, you have seen the same records I have. Speak now, or forever be remembered as a coward who stood idle while the realm was disgraced. Pycelle's face was drenched in sweat. He looked between the Queen and Lord Stark. At last, he mumbled, The Baratheon line does indeed favor black of hair in every generation, so it is recorded. If the Queen's children are otherwise, it does pose certain questions. He did not quite name the incest, but the suggestion was enough. Joffrey bellowed, He's lying, mother. Make them cut off his head. Cersei forced a laugh that sounded brittle and hateful. Yes, do that. Cut off his head and let that be the end of these vile rumors. But the gold cloaks did not stir to obey her. Some looked to Baelish. Some looked to Ned. Others looked to one another. The tension in the hall was like a tightly drawn bowstring. Sandor Clegane's voice rumbled, This is folly. We cannot be sure of who commands the gold cloaks. You want me to kill the hand right here, in front of half the court? Cersei whirled on him, If you were my sworn shield, you will obey my commands. The hound did not move. He stared at Ned, then back at Cersei, and said nothing. In the hush, Ned spoke once more. In the name of King Robert, in the name of justice, I ask that you surrender, Queen Cersei. No harm need come to you or your children if you submit. The truth is out. The realm will not suffer a bastard on the throne. She looked at him as though he were the simplest fool in all the 7 kingdoms. You truly are an idiot, she said quietly, venom in her tone. You think me cornered, but you forget who my father is. You forget my brother Jaime. You forget that gold wins wars. Even if you claim the throne for Stannis, do you think the people will rally behind that stern shadow of a man? You do not know how to play this game, Lord Stark. Ned squared his shoulders. It is no game. It is duty. For a moment, everything balanced on a knife's edge. Then Cersei parted her lips to speak, but the great doors of the throne room banged open, echoing in the silent hall. A handful of men in the crimson livery of House Lannister rushed in. At their center was Ser Marentrant of the King's Guard, dragging someone by the arm. An older woman, hair disheveled, eyes wide with fear. She wore the garments of a noble lady. It was Sansa Stark. Ned's heart lurched. He took a stride forward. Sansa. Sansa gazed at him, tears brimming in her eyes. She did not cry out, but her face was etched with terror. Ned realized in that awful moment that Cersei had anticipated something of this. She had seized on a potential hostage. He had told Sansa nothing of his plan, but she was clearly at court. They had taken her. Cersei's smile returned, sharper than before. So honorable, Lord Stark. I have your daughter. Do you still wish to proclaim me a traitor? The gold cloaks parted, uncertain. Ned felt as though a sword had just skewered him through the chest. Release her, he said, fighting to keep his composure. If he lost control, if violence erupted, Sansa could be killed or used as a shield. Mother, let me kill her, Joffrey said viciously, though his voice shook. We'll mount her head on a spike next to his for this insult. Ned's blood roared in his ears. He fought to keep his face calm, though inside he wanted to cut down every Lannister dog in sight. That is my daughter. Harm her, and not even your father's armies will save you from Stark vengeance. Cersei laughed humorlessly. So we threaten each other with vengeance, do we? That is how House Lannister does it, indeed. But perhaps we can still find a resolution. She trailed a hand through the air. Renounce this vile accusation. Swear fealty to Prince Joffrey as the rightful heir, and your daughter is returned to you unharmed. You can retain your seat as Lord of Winterfell, and all shall be forgiven. After all, you can claim you were misled by false rumors. It happens to the best of us. Or is your pride, your so-called honor, worth your daughter's life? Ned stood, heart thunderous. He felt Renly shift beside him. On the edges of his vision, he saw Baelish calmly watch, as though enthralled by a show on a stage. The gold cloaks, newly bought with Baelish's coin, seemed uncertain, torn between orders. Sansa looked at her father, eyes pleading, lips quivering in silent terror. He realized, with a horrible clarity, that Cersei was capable of doing anything now. Ned had expected a confrontation, but not that she would present Sansa as a hostage so openly. If he recanted, his entire cause would be undone. The truth might eventually come out, but Cersei would hold him in chains or demand his exile. Or she might kill him quietly once he bent the knee. If he stood firm, his beloved daughter could die. Time slowed to a standstill. Memories rushed him. Sansa smiling at the prospect of marrying a prince, her desire to be a queen one day. Arya's bright eyes, the tomboy with a sword. Bran climbing the towers in Winterfell. Rickon laughing with the wolves. Robb's solemn acceptance of the burdens of lordship. Jon at the wall with unspoken questions about his mother. All that Ned had done was to keep them safe. But now the game threatened to swallow them whole. He turned his head toward Peter Baelish. The man gave no indication that he planned to intervene. And what could he do even if he wished? Sansa was within a few short yards of Joffrey, the Hound, and the other Kingsguard. A single slash could end her life. But a voice of resolution sounded in Ned's heart, reminding him of who he was. He was Eddard Stark, Warden of the North, sworn to protect the realm. Honor was not a piece of parchment to be waved or discarded. It was the marrow of his bones. He prayed in that instant for the old gods to guide him. He prayed that they watch over Sansa, that they watch over him in the choice he now faced. He stared Cersei in the eyes. "Let my daughter go, and you have my word she will not be harmed. If you release her, I will consider your demand." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "You have no position to negotiate. The City Watch may not entirely heed my commands, but your daughter is in my grasp." She rested a hand on Sansa's shoulder as if she were a favored pet. "I will not release her. Not until you recant your vile accusations in front of all these witnesses." Ned's men looked at him, uncertain if they should surge forward, uncertain if they could save Sansa in time. The Watchers held their breath, waiting for the outcome. It was a moment that would decide the course of the realm, whether Ned Stark would stand by his oath to reveal the truth or whether he would sacrifice his integrity to save his daughter. He felt tears burn in his eyes, but he would not let them fall. He remembered Sansa as a babe in his arms. He remembered how she had once asked if ladies could ride in tourneys too. And he remembered the thousands, if not tens of thousands, of innocents who might die if the Lannisters retained their stolen power. The realm would bleed. Yet how could he sacrifice Sansa? The stillness broke by the approach of a group of men through the far doors. It was Barristan and Selmy, pale and solemn, leading a troop of the King Guard. Behind them, on a wheeled litter, lay King Robert Baratheon. The hush that followed was absolute. Ned had never expected to see Robert outside his sick room again, not in his condition. But there he was, propped up by cushions, his face ashen, half covered with a sheen of sweat. His eyes were half-lidded, yet he seemed aware. The wheels of the litter squeaked in the hush. Barristan called out, "Make way for the king." Cersei took a step back, momentarily thrown off. Even Joffrey reeled in shock, uncertain how his father had come to be here. The gold cloaks parted and the Watchers bowed or curtsied. Robert's litter moved slowly toward the dais. Two maesters hovered beside him, along with a handful of men who had carried him in. Pycelle cried out, "Your Grace, you must not strain yourself so." Robert gave a bark of laughter that turned into a hacking cough. He glared at Pycelle. "Shut your mouth. I wanted to see what this commotion was about. Thought I was hearing all manner of nonsense about my children." His eyes flicked over to Ned. "Ned, damn you, you look well." Ned rushed forward, ignoring the stares, to kneel by Robert's litter. "Your Grace, you should be resting. You, should be doing many things, but I'll be dead soon enough. This blasted wound, it's killing me, Ned." He licked his cracked lips, beckoning Ned closer. "Tell me the truth. Have you discovered something about Joffrey?" Cersei quickly spoke up, adopting a concerned tone. "My love, you should not trouble yourself with these matters. Please, let us help you back to E." Silence. Robert snarled, mustering a sliver of the old fury that once made him unstoppable in battle. "Don't speak to me. I want to hear from Ned." Ned realized that this was both an unexpected blessing and a terrifying risk. If he told Robert the truth now, Robert might order Joffrey's death on the spot. Or he might not believe Ned. But above all, if Robert believed him, then all illusions would shatter, and Cersei might move to violence at once. Yet Robert was the king, still breathing, though perhaps for not much longer. Ned's voice trembled. "Your Grace, it pains me to say it, but the boy Joffrey is not your son. The same is true of Myrcella and Tommen. They are the offspring of the Queen's brother, Jaime Lannister." A collective gasp and hush fell anew. Robert's hand spasmed around the edge of the litter, knuckles whitening. He gave a choking sound of rage and sorrow. "Do you know what you're saying?" he managed. Ned met his friend's gaze. "Yes, I have the proof, all of it. Your bastards are dark-haired, but your so-called children with the Queen are not. The records show every Baratheon in the line has been black of hair, save none. This is the truth." Robert's eyes flicked to Cersei. She stood there, face full of a regal hardness. She no longer pleaded with him, but met his stare with contempt. King Robert turned his head slightly, taking in Joffrey, who quivered under that gaze. Is this madness?" "Cersei," Robert rasped, "tell me it's not true." She lifted her chin. "And if it were true, what would you do, Robert? Raise your hammer and crush me, as you did the Targaryens?" Robert let out a shuddering breath. "Gods, you truly are a serpent." He coughed painfully, each spasm racking his massive frame. Barristan Selmy reached to steady him, but Robert waved him off. "Do you not deny it?" Cersei did not flinch. "I deny nothing. And what of it? You drank and whored and fathered how many bastards across the realm? You never loved me. Why should I have been faithful to you?" A hush of horror fell at her open confession. Robert's eyes brimmed with tears, though they were tears of fury, betrayal, heartbreak. "You bitch," he spat, though the words were weak. My line is ended." At that, Joffrey cried out, "Father, I..." But then he caught himself, realized the irony in calling him father. Barristan Selmy put a hand on the litter, voice thick with sorrow. "Your Grace, please calm yourself. The strain is too great." But Robert roared or tried to roar. It came out as a half-strangled bellow. "Guards!" he shouted. Kill them all. The Queen, the boy, all of them." He coughed blood, nearly doubling over in pain. "I want no trace of this treason, no trace." Instant panic seized the hall. Some of the gold cloaks took a step forward, others back. Joffrey let out a scream of terror. Cersei pulled him behind her, snarling like a cornered animal. The Kingsguard loyal to the Queen closed ranks. Sansa cowered, pinned by Merentrant's grip. Ned sprang to his feet. "Your Grace, wait, not the children." He could not condone the murder of Myrcella and Tommen. They were innocent of their parents' sins, in his view, and they were only small. But Robert was lost in a red haze of agony and betrayal, his heart failing under the shock. "Kill them," Robert repeated through clenched teeth. "Every last gods," he sagged, his face draining of color. "Ned, do it for me. End them." His eyelids fluttered, and then he fell unconscious or close to it, the last reserves of his strength spent. Barristan Selmy barked orders for the maesters to attend the king, who was clearly near death. The litter-bearers tried to lift him and move him away from the dais, but in the confusion, the precarious balance in the throne room shattered. Men shouted orders. The gold cloaks brandished weapons, some turning to face the Kingsguard, others uncertain whom they should follow. Cersei's eyes blazed, and she seized a dagger from a guard's belt. She pressed it to Sansa's throat in one swift motion. "Back off!" she screamed. "Back off, or the girl dies." A swirl of chaos ensued. Ned bellowed for men to hold their ground, for them not to attack. He could not let Sansa be harmed. But he saw Joffrey scramble for a sword as the Hound stepped forward, possibly to protect the royals or to seize them. Even the Hound looked uncertain. The gold cloaks advanced, but Baelish shouted for them to hold. Tension rose to a snapping point. In the midst of that swirling chaos, Ned stepped forward, ignoring the swords pointed at him. He met Cersei's wild gaze. "Let my daughter go," he commanded, voice breaking. "She is innocent." Cersei pressed the dagger closer to Sansa's white throat, drawing a bead of blood. "Innocent? Are any of us innocent now? She laughed, high and bitter. We are beyond innocence. You have destroyed everything. Stark, my father will burn your precious north. There will be war. Nedzi, yes, flicked from Sansa's tear-stained face to the queen. War can still be avoided, he lied, for he suspected war was inevitable now. If you yield, the children can be spared. The realm need not bleed for your crimes. She sneered at him. Spare me your mercy. The lion does not yield to the wolf. The Lannisters always pay their debts. At that instant, Joffrey tried to shove away from his mother and make a lunge for Ned with a sword. Renly, who stood to Ned's side, quickly blocked the blow with a deft movement. Joffrey stumbled, rage on his face. Meanwhile, one of Ned's men tried to get close to Cersei, hoping to free Sansa, but the queen spun, keeping the dagger pressed to the girl's throat. It was Peter Baelish who finally moved in a manner that no one could predict. With an agility that belied his languid manner, he slipped through the confusion and seized hold of the hand Cersei held the dagger with. For a moment, Ned dared hope that Baelish was saving Sansa. But then Baelish angled the blade away from Sansa's throat and, with a quick twist of his wrist, jerked the dagger downward, opening a deep gash along Cersei's forearm. She cried out, dropping the dagger. Sansa wrenched free, stumbling away from the queen's grasp. Ned surged forward to pull Sansa back, ignoring Baelish's presence for the moment. Father and daughter clung together, relief mingled with terror in their eyes. Cersei, meanwhile, reeled back, clutching her wounded arm. She glared at Baelish, furious and disbelieving. The Hound took advantage of that moment to grab Joffrey by the scruff, yanking him back as well. "You'll thank me for this later, boy," he muttered grimly. A heartbeat later, everything devolved further. Some of the Kingsguard advanced to defend Cersei. Ned's men roared, surging forward to guard their lord. Baelish slid aside with cat-like grace. The gold cloaks parted like a wave, uncertain whom to support. Half of them seemed to rally to Ned, half to the queen. Shouts and clangs of steel on steel echoed under the high ceiling. Courtiers screamed, fleeing in all directions or huddling against the walls in terror. Amid the melee, Ned wrapped Sansa in his arms and barked orders. "Form a line, hold them off." With a desperate look, he saw the litter bearing Robert whisked from the hall, likely to the king's chambers or the maesters. The once mighty king had collapsed into a dying husk. His last command had been to kill the queen and her children, a dreadful order that Ned had no intention of fully carrying out. But the fury of Robert Baratheon's final days now filled the throne room like a storm of swords. As the skirmish raged, the Hound shoved Joffrey behind him and parried a blow from a gold cloak who had turned on them. Steel rang on steel. Ser Meryn Trant tried to rally more guards to defend the queen, but many had lost heart upon hearing Robert's condemnation of Cersei. Barristan Selmy, caught between his vow to protect the royal family and his duty to the crown, stood near the dais with sword drawn, uncertain. Cersei, bleeding from the arm, retreated behind a knot of Lannister guards, her face a mask of rage. "I'll see every last traitor's head on a spike," she shrilled. "Find my brother Jaime. Summon my father's armies. I'll drown this city in blood. Protect the hand." Jory Castle shouted, leading a charge against the Lannister men. It was a confused tangle of loyalties, with no single commander clearly in control. Yet from the look of it, Ned's men, combined with half the gold cloaks, held the advantage for the moment. The Lannisters were outnumbered in the throne room, though they still had formidable fighters among them. Ned guided Sansa to the periphery, near one of the tall columns, and shoved her gently into the arms of a loyal retainer. "Get her out of here. Protect her with your life." The retainer nodded and rushed her toward the doors. Ned turned back, searching for any sign of Myrcella or Tommen, but they were not present. Good, he did not want them in the midst of this. He caught a glimpse of Baelish dancing through the chaos, offering no visible aid to either side. He seemed merely to be surviving, stepping over a fallen guard, a wry expression on his face. Ned had no time to dwell on the man's motivations. Instead, he saw that the Hound was exchanging blows with one of the Lannister knights, a fierce clang of steel. Joffrey cowered nearby, eyes wide. Ned's heart hammered. If he sees Joffrey now, that might end the fighting. The queen would likely not surrender, but at least Ned would have the boy in custody. He steeled himself and broke into a run, weaving through the swirl of combat. A Lannister man-at-arms tried to intercept him. Ned parried a blow, forced the man aside, then slammed the pommel of his sword into the man's temple. The man crumpled. With a final burst of energy, Ned lunged forward and grabbed Joffrey's arm. The prince howled, but Ned slammed him to the floor, pressing a knee to his chest. The Hound turned, saw what had happened, and Ned braced himself for an attack. But the Hound hesitated, no doubt weighing his vow to protect the royal family against the knowledge that Robert himself had condemned the boy. With a low grunt, the Hound made no immediate move to kill Ned. Joffrey struggled, spit flying from his lips, screaming curses. "You'll die for this. I'll have your head. His threats were cut short when the Hound backhanded him, leaving Joffrey sputtering, tears of pain and fury in his eyes. Meanwhile, across the throne room, Ned saw that his men had subdued or driven off most of the Lannister guards. Cersei had vanished from sight, likely spirited away by whatever loyal knights or gold cloaks remained. Renly stood in a circle of fainting courtiers, sword in hand, looking triumphant and horrified at once. Barristan Selmy, seeing Joffrey captured, lowered his sword in resignation. "What would you have of me, Lord Stark?" Ned rose, hauling the half-conscious Joffrey up by the collar. "Help me restore order, Ser Barristan. I do not wish to slaughter men in this throne room." The King Robert gave a final command, but that was in the heat of betrayal. "We must keep the peace if we can." He pressed a hand to his temple, feeling a wave of exhaustion and the horror of what had just transpired. Barristan hesitated, then gave a grim nod. "For the realm," he said quietly. "I will do what I must." Ned turned to the Hound. "Sandor Clegane, will you stay your sword if I promise no harm will come to you? I know you have no love for my family, but—" The Hound scoffed. "I serve the king, or at least I did. Who is king now? That's the question." He gazed at Joffrey's bloodied lip with a mix of pity and contempt. "TCH, if Robert wanted the boy dead, who am I to say otherwise?" He looked around the hall, taking in the swirl of battered guards, the watchers pressing back against the walls, Ned's men forming ranks. "I'll not fight you," he said at last. "But if you come for me, you'll find me a dangerous foe." Ned accepted that uneasy statement. "Understood." He gestured to his men. "Secure the prince. Make certain no harm comes to him. He will face justice, not murder." A half-dozen men closed in, confiscating Joffrey's sword, restraining him despite his curses and flailing. The Hound stepped back, letting them do it, though tension remained in his posture. Baelish reappeared, stepping around bodies on the floor. "Well, that was quite the show," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Here I thought you would handle things more diplomatically, Lord Stark." Ned swung on him, anger flaring. "And you? You nearly gutted the queen." Baelish shrugged. "I saved your daughter, did I not?" He gave a lazy smile. "I'm sure you'll remember my valor when next we speak of payment or political appointments." Renly moved to join them, sweat on his brow. "She escaped, though, Ned. We have the boy, but Cersei's gone. Likely scurried to her chambers. We need to search the Red Keep." Ned nodded. "Yes, do so. But be careful. She may have loyal men hidden." Varys materialized from behind a pillar as if he had been there the whole time. "Too true, my lord. She may also have Myrcella and Tommen in her possession. If we have Joffrey, rest assured she will use those others as leverage. And then there is Lord Tywin's wrath to consider." With a trembling sigh, Ned realized how precarious the situation still was. They might have taken the throne room, but the Lannisters still commanded a great army in the west, and they held the queen somewhere in the keep. Robert was alive, but possibly in his final moments. He had demanded the death of the queen and her children, but Ned could not allow the slaughter of innocents. All he could do was hold Joffrey prisoner, search for Cersei, and pray that perhaps a less bloody resolution could be found. He looked up at the Iron Throne, a twisted seat of swords hammered together in the fires of Aegon's conquest. One slip, and a king could cut himself upon those blades. Ned recalled how Robert had once joked about the throne being too ugly to sit upon. Now that seat was the heart of a storm that threatened to tear the realm apart. What if he had remained silent? What if he had let Cersei flee when he first confronted her privately? But no, honor would never have allowed such a thing. And besides, the truth was too big to hide. The realm deserved better than a bastard born of incest on the throne. He prayed to the old gods, and even the new, that some measure of peace would come of this. Renly's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Ned, the king's chambers. We should see if Robert, if he still lives. He may be beyond reason, though." Ned turned away from the throne, nodding. "Yes, let us see to him." He raised his voice to address the men and lords present. "I name you all witnesses. The queen stands accused of treason and adultery. The boy Joffrey is not the true heir. By King Robert's own decree, I am protector of the realm." He lifted the rolled parchment bearing Robert's dying signature. "We will maintain order for the sake of the realm. Let no one challenge us or face the consequences. The rightful heir is Lord Stannis Baratheon. We shall send for him immediately." A few scattered shouts of agreement rose among the gold cloaks who remained loyal. Many courtiers simply looked on in shock, uncertain how to adapt to this new reality. Baelish gave Ned a small, mocking bow. "A stirring speech, my lord, but the Lannister gold remains. The days to come will be interesting." Ned scowled at him. "Perhaps, but for now the city is ours." He marched out of the throne room, Renly at his side, Joffrey dragged in chains behind them, the boy cursing and sobbing by turns. The hound followed at a distance, refusing to relinquish the boy to a lesser guard, but otherwise not resisting. The hour of wolves and lions had begun, Ned thought grimly. He prayed that the other Stark children in the city, Arya especially, remained safe. He prayed that the lords of the realm would accept the truth without plunging the Seven Kingdoms into a war that would drown them all in blood. Outside, the sun shone on King's Landing as though naught had changed. But everything had, and as Ned ascended the steps to the king's chambers, he felt the crushing weight of what his honor had wrought. The truth was a blade that cut deeper than any Valyrian steel. Perhaps, in time, the realm would heal from this wound, or perhaps it would fester, unleashing chaos from Winterfell to Dorne. Yet in this moment, Ned Stark reminded himself why he had done it. For the sake of honor, for the love of truth, and in memory of the sister he had once failed to save. Now he would try not to fail the realm. In King Robert's chamber, the curtains were drawn back to let in the light. Robert lay on the bed, eyes fluttering open. For one last moment, Ned knelt at the bedside, took Robert's hand in his. Their gazes locked in silent understanding. So many years of friendship, of struggles, of shared ghosts. Robert parted his lips, but no words came, only a final, rattling breath. Then he was gone, and with him the last vestige of the old rebellion that had toppled the Targaryens. Ned bowed his head. "Farewell, Robert," he murmured. Then he rose, stepping away. He looked to Barristan Selmy, who stood as though carved from stone, tears on the old knight's cheeks. "We have lost a king, Ser Barristan," Ned said, voice heavy. "Now we must find a way to preserve the kingdom he left behind." Barristan nodded once, stiffly. "Yes, my lord." In that hush, Ned turned to Renly. "Send ravens to Dragonstone, to every lord who will heed the king's final testament. Inform them Stannis Baratheon is the rightful king now. Robert is dead." Renly swallowed hard, nodded. "Yes. And what of Cersei, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen?" Ned's eyes hardened. "We will keep them alive. We will keep them under guard. And the realm will know that justice is not cruelty. If we can prevent bloodshed, we must try. But if the queen and her kin resist further, if she tries to raise armies," he stopped, the words choking in his throat, "then war may be upon us." As the quiet enveloped them, Ned Stark stood in that chamber, feeling as though he were balancing a crown of knives upon his head. The truth had been laid bare in the seat of power for all to see. There was no turning back. Ahead lay duty, blood, and an uncertain dawn. And the final breath of King Robert Baratheon echoed still in Ned's memory, a requiem for the realm they had once dreamed to protect. He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, exhaling a shuddering breath. Then, with as much resolve as he could muster, Lord Eddard Stark turned and walked from the room, carrying the burden of the realm on his shoulders, a burden he had claimed in the name of honor. So began a new chapter in the history of the Seven Kingdoms, one in which the truth, at last, was a clarion call echoing from the Red Keep to the farthest shores of Westeros. And whether the truth would spare them from the fires of war or stoke them higher, only the gods could say. Ned Stark stood in a silent daze in the corridor outside the king's chambers. Every breath brought him the memory of Robert's face, contorted in fury and heartbreak mere moments before he died. That final scene replayed in Ned's mind like a cruel jest, overshadowing even the chaos that had erupted in the throne room. Joffrey was in chains, Cersei had escaped deeper into the Red Keep. Yet the realm would scarcely have time to breathe before learning its king was dead, and the legitimate heir was neither Joffrey nor any of the other golden-haired children. He drew in a long breath, willing himself to steel his heart for the task ahead. Time was short. He could almost feel the tremors rippling through the Red Keep, as lords, ladies, and small folk alike discovered that King Robert had breathed his last, that the hand had exposed the royal children as bastards, and that an entire dynasty teetered on the brink of ruin. Word would soon spread beyond the castle walls, leaping from tavern to street corner, from street corner to the alleyways, until the whole city buzzed with rumor. It would not be long before the Lannisters in the west learned of these events, or the Tyrells in Highgarden, the Martells in Dorne, the Tullis of Riverrun, and most dangerous of all Stannis Baratheon upon Dragonstone, the rightful heir. Ned forced himself upright. Renly stood at his elbow, pale but composed, and beside them Barristan Selmy lingered, his white cloak stained with the dust of the day's violence. Farther down the corridor, a knot of Ned's guards kept a protective watch. At the center of that knot, still sputtering insults and curses, was Joffrey Baratheon, or rather Joffrey Hill if one used the bastard surname. He had been stripped of his princely finery down to a simple linen shirt and breeches, both soiled from the scuffle in the throne room. The boy glared at the men holding him, every ounce the petulant child who had once kicked at cats in the Red Keep's halls. Ned exchanged a glance with Renly. The younger Baratheon said, voice tight, "We've sent ravens to Dragonstone already, as you commanded. I included your letter to Stannis, telling him to sail for King's Landing and claim the throne. I also wrote to the major lords in the Crownlands, the Stormlands, some in the Reach if they might heed it. The city is in uproar, Ned. None know quite what to believe, though your announcement in the throne room was quite difficult to misinterpret." Barristan Selmy cleared his throat. "You must expect the Lannisters to muster. They have enough gold to hire mercenaries thrice over, and Lord Tywin's forces are said to be gathering near Harrenhal or in the west. Rumors abound." Ned nodded grimly. "Yes, Lord Tywin never sits idle when one of his own is threatened. Even so, we cannot abandon the city to him. Robert is gone. We must hold King's Landing for the true king, Stannis." They set off down the corridor, Ned in the lead. Two guards dragged Joffrey in their wake, and the boy alternated between sulking and snarling at them. At last, Joffrey managed to twist around enough to hiss, "Where's my mother?" The question spilled from him in a tight, high voice. "She'll kill you all. The Lannisters will kill you all. You think you're safe because you hold me? I'm the king. I'll see you dead." No one answered him, though Ned felt a pang at the vehemence of that threat. Joffrey was no true son of Robert, but the boy had Robert's temper and Cersei's cruelty. There was no doubt of that. When they reached a junction of corridors, Ned halted. The air carried a faint odor of smoke. Someone had knocked over a brazier in the earlier frenzy, leaving an acrid tang drifting on the air. Ned turned to one of his men, a tall northerner in stark livery. "Take Joffrey to the black cells beneath the Red Keep. Keep 4 guards on him at all times. Feed him, but treat him firmly. No harm is to come to him unless he tries to escape. Is that clear?" The guard bowed. "Aye, my lord. We'll see him safe behind bars." With that, they dragged the struggling boy away. Joffrey's furious shouts echoed off the stone walls. A handful of frightened courtiers peered from distant corners, then scurried away like mice. Renly watched them go, then turned to Ned. "So you mean to keep him alive?" Robert would have had his head in an instant, or so he tried to command before he died. Ned pressed his lips together. "I won't butcher a child. Yes, he's vicious, but he's still not yet come of age. Perhaps the realm will demand justice, but that is for the rightful king to decide. That is for Stannis to decide." Barristan's voice was low. "Stannis Baratheon will not look kindly upon Joffrey, nor upon Tommen or Mosella. The law calls them abominations, the fruit of incest. If you believe he will show them mercy, you might be disappointed. I have known Stannis for many years, Lord Stark. He is a stern man, unyielding. No one doubts that he is just, but sometimes justice is harsh." Ned's gray eyes flickered with conflict. "I know. Still, I have done my part to bring the truth into the light. I will not commit the slaughter of children to preserve peace. Let Stannis come. Let him judge. So long as my own keep them safely under guard, no harm need befall them now. There has been enough blood spilled." They moved on toward the Tower of the Hand. The passages were unnervingly still, no sign of the Queen, though Ned had posted watchers at every major exit, and any Lannister loyalist found wandering the halls with weapons drawn would be detained. Even so, Cersei was clever. She might have fled the Red Keep Alto get her. She might be hiding somewhere within its labyrinth of corridors. The knowledge that she was still at large gnawed at Ned like a rotting tooth. She could strike at any time. Or at Sansa, or at Arya. God's Arya? He needed to make certain his youngest daughter was safe. He paused outside the Tower of the Hand, addressing a cluster of men who wore the gold cloaks of the City Watch. It was a tense moment, for only half of them had shown loyalty in the throne room while the others had wavered. Ned recognized their captain, Janos Slynt, the man he had considered removing from command mere days ago. Slynt's eyes shifted nervously. Ned said, "Captain, where's Littlefinger?" "I was told Lord Baelish was securing the loyalty of the City Watch, distributing coin, presumably from the royal treasury. But I have not seen him since the fighting." Slynt dipped his head in a shallow bow. "My lord, Lord Baelish said he had urgent business." Slipped out while the confusion was thick. "I don't know where he's gone. Might have gone to the treasury or to his brothels. Hard to say." Ned's jaw tightened. Baelish was as slippery as an eel. He had saved Sansa in the throne room, yet Ned did not trust the man an inch. "Very well. And what of your men now?" The captain's face glistened with sweat. "The gold cloaks follow you, my lord, as protector of the realm. That's what King Robert decreed." He forced a grin, though his eyes betrayed uncertainty. "We want no trouble." Ned nodded curtly, though inside he harbored doubts. Baelish had used coin to buy their loyalty, but if the Lannisters dangled a larger purse, how soon would they change their tune? Keep the peace in the streets. There is to be no rioting, no looting. If any Lannister men appear armed and seek to take control of the city, you are to detain them. Do you understand? "I," said Slynt, forcing another bow. "We understand." Renly leaned into Ned and muttered under his breath, "I wouldn't trust that one further than I can throw him." Ned could only agree. They left Slynt to his tasks and ascended the steps into the Tower of the Hand. The interior was blessedly cool after the day's heat, the shadows long in the corridors. Guards bowed as Ned passed. He asked after Sansa and Arya. A steward reported that Sansa was in Ned's chambers, shaken but safe, resting with Septa Mordane. Arya had apparently fled the chaos earlier and was last seen near the courtyard, wooden sword in hand. Ned instructed the guards to escort her back at once. At last, he and Renly reached the suite of rooms Ned used for his office and private solar. He stepped inside to find the shutters drawn against the day's glare. His desk was piled with missives, some unopened, some half-read. Ravens awaited responses. There sat the great seal of the realm, which Robert had once idly plopped down with a grunt. A wave of memory washed over Ned. How Robert would laugh at the tedium of ruling. How he slapped Ned on the back and said, "You do it, old friend." Now Ned did indeed do it, but the burden felt crushing. He sank into the chair behind the desk, scrubbing a hand over his face. Renly stood beside him, arms folded. Barristan lingered near the door, silent as a sentinel. For a time, no one spoke. Then Ned inhaled, forced order into his swirling thoughts, and began giving directives. "The realm is in disarray," he said, as if speaking to the ghosts of the tower. "We must secure the Red Keep entirely. Ser Barristan, I want the Kingsguard that remain, your brothers in white, either sworn to me as protector or confined to their quarters until Stannis arrives. I do not want a sword left behind me for the Queen to seize." Barristan inclined his head. "I will do as you command, my lord, though my sworn vows are to protect the royal family. I will not raise a blade against them in cruelty, but I will do as duty compels, protect the realm in King Robert's name." His voice contained heartbreak, for everything he knew had been turned on its head in the course of a single day. Ned acknowledged his conflict with a weary nod. "That is all I can ask of you, Ser Barristan. The children remain alive under watch. Stannis must decide their fate." Renly spoke next. "What of my brother's funeral rites? Robert, we must see him properly mourned. We cannot let the people think his death was overshadowed entirely by scandal." Ned's gaze fell to the table, to the wax candle flickering on its surface. "Yes, it must be done. We'll arrange for a grand funeral. Robert was still the king, no matter what preceded his end. The small folk loved him. They deserve a chance to say farewell. He always said he wanted a grand feast, a final revel as they set him to rest, though I doubt that he ever thought it would come so soon. Renly's eyes glistened with grief. Then we shall grant him that much. My brother was a flawed man, but he was still Robert. He was still the hero of the rebellion. We owe him a hero's send-off. Barristan said quietly, I will help however I can. Lord Stark, do you mean to embalm him or burn him? Ned let out a slow breath. That was never decided. His body must not lie neglected. He once told me he would want to rest beside House Baratheon's ancestors in the Stormlands, but these are strange times. If the city is besieged, or if Tywin's armies march, we might not be able to transport the body. Still, we shall do our best. He paused, feeling the press of so many duties. Yes, we will give him rights here in the city. After that, if the roads are safe, we'll bring him home to Storm's End to join his kin. Renly nodded. Thank you, Ned. A silence fell as they considered the dozens of matters swirling about them like hornets. At length, Ned rose and approached the window, pushing open the shutters. A warm gust of King's Landing air slipped in. He looked over the sprawl of rooftops. The bells had not begun tolling yet, for the news of Robert's death had not been publicly proclaimed. But it would come soon and the city would reel from it. He said without turning, Renly, see that the city is calmed. Go to the Great September, speak with the High Septon. We will need him to officiate the funeral rites. We also need to keep the faith from turning the people into a mob hungry for Lannister blood. The last thing we want is a riot. War is one thing, but slaughter in the streets is another. Renly acknowledged with a short bow. As you say, Lord Protector. Ned turned back to face him. I do not relish that title, nor do I hold it lightly. When Stannis arrives, I will yield it to him. The realm belongs in the hands of its rightful king. He paused. And if you intend to challenge that claim, Renly, I beg you not to. The Baratheons must stand united, or we will tear the realm apart. A faint flush touched Renly's cheeks. I have no intention of challenging him openly, he said. But we must be practical, Ned. Half the lords prefer me to my older brother. Stannis is, well, you know him. He's not the easiest man to follow. He lacks Robert's charm. He lacks your sense of empathy. But I will do what the law demands. I promise you that. Ned studied him a moment, believing Renly to be sincere for now. Good. Then go. Do as I asked. Once Renly departed, Barristan raised a brow. He is ambitious, that one. But you are right to hold him close. You would not want him stirring discontent. Ned could only sigh. Yes. For now, let us keep the lords together. I will not have the Baratheons fighting amongst themselves while Tywin Lannister looms. They parted ways, Barristan going to gather the remaining Kingsguard and secure the Red Keep's gates. Ned, left alone in his solar, tried to steady his breathing. He needed to see Sansa. He needed to be sure Arya was well. Yet a scratching at the door pulled him from his thoughts. He admitted a messenger, a panicked young man in the livery of the Hand's household. My lord, the messenger blurted out, near breathless with nerves. We've found the queen. She's been barricaded in Maegor's Holdfast with Tommen and Myrcella along with a number of Lannister guards. They refuse to open the gates. They have crossbows at the walls and they've threatened to kill anyone who approaches. Ned felt a flicker of relief that at least she had not escaped the castle entirely, but the next thought was grim. If she held the children in there, she might threaten to harm them if forced to surrender. How many men does she have? 15 or 20? Maybe more we haven't seen. Some of the Kingsguard, 2 Ser Boros Blunt, Ser Marentrant, and it seems a few gold cloaks joined her side. Ned clenched his jaw. Of course they did. Gather a force around Maegor's Holdfast. Keep watch, but do not storm it. The last thing we need is a standoff with crossbows raining down on our men. Let me consider how best to proceed. Under no circumstances are you to rush the walls, or even provoke them. If the queen thinks she has no options, she might do something rash. The messenger bowed and left. With that, Ned found his way out of the tower, descending the winding steps to reach his private chambers. He posted 2 more guards at the door and entered to find Sansa sitting in a chair by the hearth, eyes distant. Septa Mordane hovered nearby, wringing her hands. Sansa rose the instant she saw her father, though her posture was stiff with shock. "Father," she whispered, tears welling up. Her face was pale as moonlight. They took me. Queen Cersei threatened me with a knife. Is it over?" Ned's chest constricted as he went to her, resting his hands gently on her shoulders. For now, sweetling, she cannot harm you anymore. He studied her face, saw the haunted look in her eyes. This was a child forced to face the savage ugliness of court. I'm so sorry this happened. You are safe with me. Septa Mordain bowed, her voice trembling. My lord, the poor girl is in shock. She's hardly spoken. I tried to soothe her as best I can, but these events, they are so dreadful. Ned nodded wearily. Yes, thank you, Septa. Please, keep watch over her. Keep her close. I'll have men posted outside. He hesitated, studying Sansa's expression, then pulled her into a light embrace. Listen to me, Sansa. The King Robert, he's gone. Things will change now, but I promise I will keep you safe. We will try to hold the peace until the rightful king arrives. Sansa sniffled. What of Joffrey? She asked, half fearful, half hoping for an answer she could accept. For so long, she had believed her destiny was tied to him. Now everything was in ruins. Ned felt a pang of sadness, for he knew how badly she had once wanted that fairy tale. He is under guard in the dungeons. I'm afraid he is not who we believed him to be. None of them are. Gently, he tilted her chin up. You did nothing wrong. Remember that. She swallowed and nodded, though tears pooled in her eyes. But how could this happen? She sounded like a frightened girl again, and indeed, she was only a girl of 13, thrust into a viper's nest of politics and intrigue. If Joffrey isn't truly the prince, does that mean? Will they kill him? Ned squeezed her hand. I don't know. Not if I can help it. That decision belongs to Stannis Baratheon, the new king by law. But Joffrey won't be crowned. He can't be. He stroked Sansa's hair, feeling guilt gnaw at him. He had once wanted to see her wed to Joffrey to bind House Stark and House Baratheon, to keep the realm at peace. Had he delivered her into a monster's clutches? The realm was not kind to dreamers. Rest, child. I'll see that you're well protected. Septa Mordain ushered Sansa gently away, presumably to find her a sleeping draught or at least a calmer corner of the room. Ned turned to the guards. If Arya returns, bring her here at once. The men nodded. Ned stepped back into the corridor, the swirl of responsibilities claiming him once more. Outside, the day had grown hot, the sun glaring through narrow windows. Torches guttered in sconces, adding a smoky haze to the corridors. Ned advanced, flanked by two of his loyal Stark guards, heading toward Maegor's Holdfast. It stood as a castle within a castle, ringed by a dry moat and accessible by only one drawbridge. A fortress designed by Maegor the Cruel, meant to withstand even an uprising within the Red Keep itself. Now it sheltered Queens Cersei, Myrcella, Tommen, and a handful of Lannister loyalists. When he arrived at the drawbridge, he found gold cloaks in formation, pikes leveled. Off to one side, Jory Castle was in quiet discussion with a short, thick-set man who wore the golden lion of Lannister on his tunic. A hush fell as Ned approached. Jory bowed. The Lannister man scowled but inclined his head in a semblance of respect. My lord hand, said Jory. Ser Lancel Lannister was just declaring that the queen will not emerge unless she is guaranteed safe passage. She has the children, and they threaten to kill anyone who sets foot on the drawbridge. Ned recognized Lancel, the weak-chinned cousin to Cersei and Jaime, who had once served as Robert's cupbearer on that fatal hunt. The youth looked terrified but resolute. My lord, the queen says that if you do not back away, she will do what must be done. His voice cracked. She wants free passage from the Red Keep with Prince Tommen and Princess Myrcella and an escort to Casterly Rock. Ned stared at the young knight, anger flaring. She is in no position to negotiate. Her son Joffrey is in our custody. The city belongs to the rightful king. Tell her that if she tries to flee, or if harm comes to the princess or the prince, I will hold her responsible. She will face a trial for her crimes, along with any who aid her. Lancel's face paled. That is not acceptable. She insists. She says your men attacked her family in the throne room. She calls you a usurper. His words emerged in a shaky rush. She says she is archers and crossbowmen. If you force your way in, the children might meet a tragic end. A cold pit formed in Ned's stomach. Cersei was not bluffing. He remembered how she had nearly slit Sansa's throat. She would do it if pushed too far. Gently, he drew Jory aside. We can't storm the place. She would sacrifice them out of spite. We must find a subtler way. Perhaps we can lay siege, starve her out, but that might risk the children too. Joffrey nodded somberly. Yes, my lord. She has enough food in there to last weeks, if the rumors are true. And the moat around the holdfast is guarded day and night. We might try to undermine, but the cost in blood could be high. And if they suspect sabotage, they could kill the children. Ned exhaled. All his instincts told him to preserve the children's lives. Myrcella and Tommen were younger than Joffrey, innocents in many ways. They did not deserve to die. We hold the rest of the Red Keep. She cannot remain in there forever. Place a perimeter around it, ensure they cannot leave, not even at night. Perhaps we can bide our time until Stannis arrives with an army. Let him dictate the next step. Joffrey nodded. We'll do as you say. Ned turned back to Lancel. Go tell the queen we are prepared to wait. If she tries to leave, she will be stopped. If she refuses to yield, we will outlast her. But no harm will come to the children unless she forces our hand. The best course is to surrender. If she does, I promise her a fair trial under the rightful king's authority. Lancel opened and closed his mouth, then spun on his heel and hurried back across the drawbridge, boots echoing on the wooden planks. The chains rattled as the guards within raised it, sealing off access. Ned stood there, gaze lingering on the squat fortress. Did Cersei realize that Tywin Lannister could not come to her rescue quickly enough? Or would she gamble that Ned could be intimidated? He felt caught in a net of moral obligations and political realities. If he was too lenient, she might rally more supporters. If he was too forceful, the children might die, plunging the realm into an even darker chaos. He finally turned away, summoning the Gold Cloak officers. You will maintain a constant watch day and night. No one enters, no one leaves. Do not antagonize them. Keep a safe distance from the walls, make sure no crossbow bolts can find your necks. Joffrey, you have command here. They bowed in acknowledgement and Ned strode off, exhaustion weighing heavily on his limbs. Night was falling by the time he made his way to the courtyard. Torches flickered in iron sconces. The sky overhead turned a smoky purple, streaked with the last embers of sunset. A few men led horses across the yard, while others whispered rumors about the day's events. The hush that had spread over King's Landing was the hush of rumor and fear. Word had not yet been officially proclaimed that Robert was dead, but many guessed, and soon the bells would toll. Ned paused under a stone archway. To his relief, he spotted Arya standing there in the courtyard, her sword instructor Syrio Farrell at her side. Arya's face was smudged with dirt, her hair awry, but her eyes lit up with fierce relief when she saw her father. She gave a gap-toothed grin and ran to him. Father, she breathed, though she did not fling her arms around him as Sansa might have. Arya was more subdued in her affections, but her eyes shone. Is it true Joffrey's locked up? And the queen is holed up like a rat? Ned mustered a small, tired smile. Something like that, little one. The city is in turmoil, but we are trying to restore peace. Are you hurt? She shook her head vigorously. No. Syrio kept me safe. We saw the guards running about, heard the commotion. But no one tried to harm me. We stayed out of the way until it was over. Then she looked troubled. Is Sansa all right? She is, Ned said, relieved to give that truth. She was frightened, but she's safe now in our chambers. You should go see her if you like. But please, do not wander the castle alone for now. Arya scowled. I can take care of myself. Syrio Farrell, the Braavosi sword master, laid a hand lightly on Arya's shoulder. Even the bravest cat may be trapped if it prowls unwisely, my little pupil. He inclined his head to Ned. I have kept her from trouble, Lord Stark, but trouble is all around, it seems. Ned placed a gentle hand on the man's shoulder in gratitude. Thank you, Syrio. Keep looking after her, if you would. These are dangerous times. The Braavosi bowed in acceptance, and together he and Arya headed toward the Tower of the Hand. Ned watched them go, thinking how different Arya was from Sansa and yet how precious each child was to him. He prayed that the realm's tumult would not claim either daughter. Night deepened. At last the bells of the Great September began their mournful toll, announcing to the city what many had already suspected. King Robert Baratheon was dead. The sound carried over every rooftop, out to the wharves and the slums of Flea Bottom, echoing in tower and tavern and brothel. Ned heard it while standing on a rampart, arms folded, looking toward the distant lights that dotted the city. The bells tolled again and again, filling the air with sorrow. Men were lighting funeral pyres for those who had been slain in the throne room scuffle or in minor skirmishes around the keep. Ned could smell the acrid smoke. By the faint torchlight, he saw the silhouettes of city watch patrolling the walls. Under that funereal peal, he could almost imagine the city itself was lamenting more than one death, the end of an era, the passing of illusions. Robert's extravagant feasts, his rowdy hunts, his easy camaraderie with the small folk, that was gone now, leaving a vacuum to be filled by war or tyranny or something else. Ned P. Rayed it would be something better. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Varys the spider, robed in his voluminous silks, gliding along the rampart. The Master of Whisperers gave a soft, theatrical sigh as he took up a position beside Ned. "Ah, my Lord Stark," Varys murmured. "Such a sorrowful sound, is it not? The tolling of the bells? Do you recall the last time they tolled so long and loud?" Ned did not bother to hide his distaste for the man. "I recall them tolling for King Aerys after your rebellion, but also for Lord Aaron half a year ago. They ring often enough in this city, though never for a reason so grave as the passing of Robert." Varys nodded, folding his hands together. "Indeed, and now we are left with a predicament. Queen Cersei barricaded, Prince Joffrey in your cells, the realm uncertain which banner to follow. I must confess, I never thought I would see the day when a child of Cersei was put in chains." "You do work swiftly, my lord. Some might say too swiftly." Ned eyed him. "You have a habit of knowing more than you let on, Varys. You knew about the incest, didn't you?" The eunuch gave a delicate shrug. "My little birds chirp many things, Lord Stark, but knowledge and proof are rarely the same. And of course, it takes a man of honor to act upon certain truths. Others might prefer to keep the peace by burying secrets. You, however, are not like that. Your honor is as inflexible as the Old North. I wonder if that is a virtue or a liability." Ned felt his anger rise. "We shall see. For now, the city is calmer than I feared. I expect things may turn bloodier when Tywin Lannister learns of his daughter's predicament. But we had no choice." Varys tilted his head. "No choice at all. War is sometimes the only outcome. The queen is not one to go meekly into exile or captivity. Then again, Lord Tywin is hardly a meek man. We might see an alliance of great houses pitted against you and Stannis Baratheon. Perhaps the Tyrells, who once tried to put a pretender on the throne. Or the Freys, so famously unpredictable. Who can say? We stand upon the edge of a knife, my lord." Ned stared out over the city, the bells still tolling, and exhaled. "If it must be war, then we will face it. But I pray that we can end this without drowning the 7 kingdoms in blood. I would prefer to keep your queen and her children under guard until Stannis arrives and let him punish them by law, not murder them in the streets." Varys nodded, though his eyes were distant. "A noble sentiment. Too often, in my experience, the truth leads to war. If the realm is fortunate, a just king will ascend the throne and unify the lords. But if men like Lord Tywin resist, the unification might come at a terrible cost." He placed a hand upon the stone parapet. "I only hope the small folk do not suffer as they so often do." Ned let out a weary breath, ignoring the jab of guilt those words triggered. He knew well that the common folk paid the highest price in any war. "That is why I want to keep Joffrey alive. I do not want to provoke the Lannisters further by delivering his head to them. They'll claim we murdered an innocent boy, no matter the truth of his lineage. Then Tywin will not stop until King's Landing is burned." Varys blinked slowly. "Wise indeed. Tell me, have you considered the needs of the treasury? War is expensive and the crown is in debt to House Lannister by a considerable sum. I suspect they will demand full repayment once they learn of the Queen's predicament." Ned scowled at the mention of coin. "The treasury is a labyrinth. That was Baelish's domain. I have not yet had time to unearth the ledgers, but I know Robert left us deep in debt. It is another problem that must be solved if we are to raise men to defend the city." Varys pursed his lips in a sympathetic moue. "Lord Peter has a talent for creative finances. Perhaps he's already making moves in that direction. I did see him slip out earlier, as you know. Where he goes, the gods only can say, but best keep a close eye on him as well. A coin might buy 1,000 swords or turn 1,000 swords against you." Ned nodded grimly. "I'll deal with Baelish when he reappears. For now, let him work if it strengthens our defenses. But if he's in league with the Lannisters, I'll have his head. I'm done tolerating vipers in my midst." Varys smiled thinly and offered a short bow. "Then I shall leave you to your vigil, my lord. I have matters to attend to. Even a eunuch must make his rounds, especially now that the Red Keep crawls with tension. Good night." He melted away into the darkness, leaving Ned alone with his thoughts. The bells still tolled, though more faintly now, as if nearing the end of their sorrowful announcement. Ned gazed at the city, imagining the thousands upon thousands of people who might be lighting candles for King Robert, or cursing the Lannisters, or cursing the Starks, or simply praying the morning would bring some semblance of peace. He wondered how many more would die before this was over. Eventually, he returned to his solar, wrote letters commanding all loyal lords in the Crownlands to keep the roads open for Stannis. He wrote to the Lords of the Vale, hoping perhaps Lisa Arryn would see reason and offer aid rather than hiding in the Eyrie. He wrote to Riverrun as well, to Catelyn's brother Edmure, explaining the dire circumstances and requesting support if the Lannisters invaded. By the time he finished, the candles had burned low and exhaustion weighed upon him like a lead cloak. He found rest only in the small hours before dawn, collapsed on a makeshift bed in the Tower of the Hand. Dreams of Winterfell haunted him, dark crypts, the statues of dead Starks gazing with hollow eyes as if judging him for staying in King's Landing. Then came fleeting images of Robert and Rhaegar Targaryen, their legendary battle at the Trident, swirling into a tapestry of illusions. He woke with a start at the first light of day, heart pounding. An uneasy calm had settled over the Red Keep. Morning came with a clang of urgency. The city had awakened to the news. The bells had stopped, but their memory lingered. Hushed voices spoke King Robert's name, and men looked to the castle walls, aware that something was different. There was no triumphant new king stepping forward. Instead, rumors flew that the Hand had seized the throne room, that the Queen was locked in a hidden fortress, that Prince Joffrey was no prince at all. The tension was a living thing, thrumming in every alleyway. Ned wasted no time. He summoned the small council, what remained of it, to meet in the Tower of the Hand. Over the years, the council had been comprised of Robert's appointees, Pycelle as Grand Maester, Varys as Master of Whisperers, Littlefinger as Master of Coin, Barrist and Selmy as Lord Commander of the King's Guard, Renly as Master of Laws. Now, half those seats were empty or compromised. Cersei had once sat in on meetings, but obviously she would not be attending now. Jaime had been absent for some time. Stannis had removed himself to Dragonstone. Renly was present, though overshadowed by the sorrow for his brother. Barristan arrived, face stiff with fatigue. Pycelle came, stooped with age, carrying the weight of the new crisis. Varys joined, calm and unreadable as ever. Peter Baelish, to Ned's faint surprise, arrived halfway through the meeting, all smooth courtesy and faintly amused eyes. Ned began, voice low but firm, "King Robert is dead. May the Seven guide his soul. As protector of the realm, I have called you here to discuss how we proceed in these uncertain times. Prince Joffrey and his siblings are not Robert's true-born children, so the throne passes to Lord Stannis. I have sent ravens to summon him." He looked pointedly at Pycelle. "Grand Maester, do you have an update on Robert's body? Will you see him prepared for a funeral?" Pycelle bowed his head, fingers trembling around a sheaf of parchments. "Yes, my lord. We have placed him in the royal sept within the Red Keep. I have used certain herbs to slow decay, for his wound was severe. The funeral arrangements can be made once we decide how best to proceed. If Stannis arrives soon, he may wish to lead the procession. Or if not, Lord Renly may represent House Baratheon." Renly nodded, though he looked uneasy. "Yes, I will ensure Robert is honored. The city must see we do not neglect him even in death." Ned looked around the table. "Next, we must address the matter of Queen Cersei. She remains in Maegor's holdfast with Tommen and Myrcella refusing to surrender. She has crossbows pointed at anyone who approaches. My men have secured the perimeter, but I prefer not to storm the holdfast while children are inside. Does anyone have advice?" Baelish leaned forward, lacing his fingers together. "Perhaps we can negotiate. If the Queen were to be given safe passage to Casterly Rock, she might relinquish the children. Or she might keep them and depart. That would be simpler than forcing a siege." Ned's mouth tightened. "We cannot simply allow them to escape. They must answer for their crimes in front of the rightful king. What if she flees to Tywin, raising an army to retake the city by force?" Baelish shrugged, feigning innocence. "Yes, that is a risk. But at least it would be outside these walls, away from the hostages. War might come either way. This is a question of how we prefer to fight it. If we keep her caged, she may kill Tommen and Myrcella rather than let them fall into our hands. Cersei would do anything to protect her secrets. Some might say an exodus is the lesser evil." Renly slammed a hand on the table. "We cannot let her walk free. That would be madness. She incited treason, fathered bastards with her brother. Robert would never have allowed it." Varys hummed softly. "Robert himself might have executed her. But your Lord Father, Ned, is not so inclined. You are caught between the desire for mercy and the necessity of justice. Mayhaps we should wait for Stannis to arrive with reinforcements. Once he is here, the Queen might see the hopelessness of her plight and surrender." Ned drummed his fingers on the table. "I lean toward that course. Let us maintain the siege of the holdfast and starve her out, but do nothing rash. Tommen and Myrcella must remain unharmed. If Stannis demands they face trial, so be it. If he decides some other punishment, that is his prerogative as king. In the meantime, no one crosses that drawbridge without my leave." The council mumbled agreement, though Baelish only offered his wry smile. Ned turned to him next. Now about the treasury. The realm is heavily in debt, mostly to the Lannisters, if the ledgers Robert showed me are accurate. Without a steady flow of gold, we cannot raise enough men to secure the city or fend off invasion. We need money for the city watch, for food, for bribes if it comes to that. How do you propose we handle it, Lord Baelish? Littlefinger spread his hands. We do what we must. Borrow more from the Iron Bank, perhaps, though that can be precarious. Increase taxes on the lords loyal to us. Encourage the faith to donate coin in the name of stability. There are ways, but your conflict with the Lannisters will hardly help. Lord Tywin will not appreciate attempts to avoid repaying the crown's debts. Ned gave him a cold look. Lord Tywin would not appreciate anything we do unless we place Joffrey on the throne. That is not happening. So find a way. If you must restructure the debt or negotiate with Bravos, do it. If you betray us in the process, I will see you thrown into the same cells as Joffrey. Baelish smirked. So stern. Very well, my lord. I shall do what I can. Though coin alone will not solve all your problems. Pycelle coughed to draw attention. There is another matter. Winter is coming, as you Starks say. Harvests have been poor in some regions and the city's stores are not what they could be. If war disrupts trade, we may face shortages of grain. Riots could erupt if people starve. Ned took in those words with grim acceptance. Then we must secure the food stores and ensure they are well protected. If the city starves, any enemy can take advantage. Renly, see that the city watch organizes distribution if times grow lean. Renly nodded, though his eyes flickered with uncertainty. Thus, the council meeting continued, laying out the myriad issues threatening the realm, the uncertain loyalties of certain lords, the possibility of Dorne stirring, the Ironborn launching raids if they smelled weakness, the potential for foreign intervention from across the narrow sea. Ned listened, gave instructions, felt the hours slip past. By midday, he was weary from the onslaught of crisis after crisis. Yet he could not afford to falter, not now. When the meeting finally ended, Ned stepped outside, blinking in the bright midday sun. The courtyard was alive with a subdued bustle. No swords clashed, no bellowed commands rang out, but an undercurrent of tension hung in the air. His men exchanged uneasy glances with the gold cloaks. Down by the stables, he glimpsed a few battered Lannister guards pinned by crossbows, presumably prisoners taken from the throne room scuffle. He had no illusions that the peace would hold forever. War hovered in the wings. He walked toward the keep's main gate, thinking to check on the city itself, perhaps ride out to the Street of Flour where the bakers sold their bread. He wanted to gauge the common folks' mood, see if the transition of power could be managed without riots. But as he neared the gates, a breathless rider galloped in, dust swirling around the horse's hooves. The rider wore the sigil of House Tully, a silver trout on a field of red and blue. Ned recognized him as one of Riverrun's messengers. The man leaped down and bowed hurriedly, sweat beading on his brow. Lord Stark, I come from Riverrun with tidings. Lord Tywin Lannister's forces have been harrying the Riverlands, pressing close to Harrenhal. There have been skirmishes, burned villages. Your wife's brother, Ser Edmure, sent me to warn you. He fears that Lord Tywin might march toward the Trident or cut off supply lines to the capital. The Knights of Riverrun are preparing to defend their lands, but they seek your support and your guidance. Ned's stomach clenched. Tywin was already on the move, as he feared. When did they begin their attacks? Just days ago, my lord. Raiding parties under Gregor Clegane and other Lannister bannermen. They set fires to farmland, forced peasants to flee. Edmure rallies the Tully forces, but he worries about Jaime Lannister, who might be leading a larger host. Ned thanked the man and dismissed him for rest. Then he strode back inside, heart pounding. This was only the beginning. Tywin would not waste time mounting a rescue of his daughter or an attempt to reassert Lannister power. He would nibble away at the Riverlands, test the waters, gather a huge army in the west. If Stannis did not arrive soon, King's Landing could find itself besieged from two directions. Lannisters from the west, and who knew what else from the south if the Tyrells chose a side. War was truly upon them. He made for the ramparts again, seeking a moment's solitude in the swirl of chaos. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the ghosts of 1,000 responsibilities clung to his cloak. When he reached the top of the walls, he surveyed the city, the expanse of brown rooftops and winding alleys that led eventually to the shimmering waters of Blackwater Bay. He thought of Stannis crossing those waters, or sailing around from Dragonstone to Storm's End, or perhaps even marching overland. How many weeks would that take? His mind turned to Robb in Winterfell. If the North rose in support of Ned, it would take weeks for the Northern Bannermen to gather and march south, and they would have to cross the Neck and pass Moat Cailin, a fortress easily defended. If Tywin Lannister was already on the offensive, events might outpace Robb's ability to come to his father's aid. The thought that his young son would have to lead the North's armies weighed on him. He half regretted not sending for them sooner. But how could he have done so without proof of Joffrey's bastard status? A knot of tension pulled tight in his chest. Honor had demanded he reveal the secret, but the cost might be incalculable. He clutched the rampart, feeling the sea breeze brush his face. The gulls cried overhead. For a moment, he allowed himself to remember simpler days in Winterfell, with the crisp northern air and the hush of pine trees under snow. Then he steeled himself once more. Before the day was out, ravens bearing Ned's directives to Riverrun took flight, urging Edmure to hold fast, promising that Ned would do all in his power to send relief, or to coordinate with Stannis upon his arrival. Another raven soared to Moat Cailin, informing the Castellans that they might soon see the passage of northern troops. And a third raven traveled to the Eyrie, pleading again for Lysa Arryn to assist the cause. Ned suspected it might be in vain. Lysa was timid and paranoid, far more inclined to hide behind the Vale's mountainous passes than to risk open war. Still, he had to try. In the corridors of the Red Keep, the tension remained thick. Renly sent out his men to quell any unrest in Flea Bottom, where bread prices had spiked. Baelish vanished again, presumably to rummage the treasury or speak with wealthy contacts. Varys drifted in silence, gleaning secrets from every corner. Barristan Selmy and the Kingsguard loyal to Ned patrolled the hallways, swords at the ready. All the while, Ned's watchers around Maegor's holdfast reported no change. Cersei refused any messenger. Even Lancel seemed to have gone silent behind those barricaded walls. That evening, in Ned's private solar, Sansa and Arya joined him for a quiet supper. It was an uneasy meal: bread, stew, a little wine for Ned, water for the girls. Arya stared at the table, poking at her stew, while Sansa nibbled at the bread, eyes distant. Ned tried to reassure them with gentle smiles, but the presence of armed guards outside the door reminded them how grave matters were. Arya spoke first, her tone subdued. "Father, when can we go home?" "To Winterfell?" The question hung in the air like an echo of childhood longing. Ned forced a gentle voice. "Soon, I hope, when the king's succession is settled and the war avoided or finished. I want nothing more than to see you safe in the north." He paused, but not yet. Sansa looked up. "And is Joffrey truly a bastard? He always said such awful things, but I never thought, was it all a lie?" Ned sighed. He was led to believe a lie as well, I suspect, at least about his father. Cersei is the one who orchestrated it. That does not excuse his cruelty, but in some ways, he's also a victim of the Queen's deception. "I'm sorry you had to learn it in such a terrible way." They ate in silence after that, each weighed by their own fears. When the girls finally retired to bed, Ned remained awake, poring over letters and reports, absorbing the gravity of the realm's precarious state. Another dark night, another uncertain dawn awaiting them. Sleep claimed him eventually, but only in fits and starts. Every dream ended in the ringing of swords or the thunder of horses' hooves. Days passed in a tense stalemate. The city braced for an attack that did not yet come. Cersei remained locked away, refusing to surrender. Joffrey languished in the dungeons, cursing the guards daily. Word arrived from Dragonstone that Stannis was mustering ships, that he was sending ravens of his own to major lords to demand fealty. The Vale made no reply beyond a formal condolence. For Robert's death, there was no word from Tywin except rumors of Lannister banners massing in the west and the continuing raids on the Riverlands. Ned ordered the city watch to make a show of force on the streets, patrolling to keep order. At first, the small folk seemed subdued, offering meager prayers for Robert's soul. But as the days lengthened, the question of who wore the crown grew more pressing. Stannis' name was murmured, but he was nowhere to be seen. Some in the city began to wonder if the realm was leaderless, if the capital might dissolve into chaos. Baelish Riley suggested Ned should set himself up as regent in name, hold a ceremony, proclaim the new rule. Ned refused. He would not wear a crown that did not belong to him. On the 5th day after Robert's death, a startling message arrived at dawn. Stannis had landed near King's Landing with a modest force from Dragonstone, having taken advantage of fair winds to sail up the Blackwater Rush. He had not brought a massive army, perhaps 3,000 men at most, but it was enough to establish a foothold. Ned felt a surge of relief that the rightful king was finally here, though he wondered if it was too few soldiers to hold the city against a Lannister assault. Still, it was a beginning. He personally rode out to meet Stannis on the banks of the Blackwater, flanked by a column of Stark guards and gold cloaks. Stannis awaited him in a small encampment, the banners of the flaming heart of the Lord of Light and the stag of Baratheon flapping in the breeze. Ned noted the presence of the Red Priestess Melisandre, a tall, pale woman with red hair, standing silently at Stannis' side, her eyes unsettling. Stannis himself looked as grim and humorless as ever, a lean man, balding on top, his jaw clenched. Ned dismounted and bowed. "Lord Stannis, by law of the land you are king of the Undulls and the First Men. I welcome you to King's Landing. I have endeavored to hold the city in your name until you arrived." Stannis studied him with that cold, pale gaze, then gave a short nod. "Well met, Lord Stark. My condolences on the death of my brother." He said it stiffly, as though uncertain how to express grief. "I have come to claim my throne, as is my right. Is the city secure?" Ned straightened. "As secure as we can make it. Robert's bastard children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, are in custody, though the Queen has taken Tommen and Myrcella hostage in Maegor's Holdfast. We hold Joffrey in the dungeons. The gold cloaks answer to me, but some remain uncertain. War looms. Tywin Lannister is gathering forces in the west and the Riverlands burn." Stannis' face hardened. "Treason. They will pay for it. The Lannisters sought to place a bastard upon my throne. They will see justice met. As for the city's watch, we will bring them to heel. I have brought some loyal knights from Dragonstone, though I wish I had more. My bannermen in the Stormlands are also mustering and will join us soon." Ned gestured. "Come, your grace. Let us ride to the Red Keep. We can finalize the details of your coronation and we can deal with Cersei. But I beg you, do not put Myrcella and Tommen to the sword. They are children, innocents." Stannis' mouth was a hard line. "Innocents? They are the product of an incestuous union. They are a claim upon the throne that men might rally behind if we let them live. Do you wish to see the realm at war forever, each new pretender rising up?" Ned met his gaze, refusing to yield. "Your grace, the realm has bled enough. They are but children. I urge you to show mercy in the name of the Seven. Use them as hostages if you must, but do not punish them for their parents' sins. You would be a just king indeed if you show the difference between justice and cruelty." Stannis' mouth curled. He glanced at Melisandre, who stood by, her red robes stirring in the breeze. The priestess said nothing, but Ned felt a chill as she regarded him, her red eyes disconcerting. At length, Stannis offered a short nod. "We shall see. I will do what is necessary to secure the throne, but I will not kill them out of mere spite. I am no monster." Ned felt a measure of relief. It was not a guarantee, but it was something. He gave Stannis a short bow and guided him and his men toward the city gates. The gold cloaks parted before them, uncertain but cowed by the presence of the new king. Some of them bowed or saluted. Others looked away. They rode through the streets in a modest procession, gathering a cluster of wide-eyed onlookers. Whispers spread like wildfire, "Stannis is here. King Stannis has come." By the time they reached the Red Keep, a hush had fallen, punctured only by the tramp of boots on cobblestones. At the gates, Renly, Barristan Selmy, and the rest of Ned's loyal men awaited them. Stannis dismounted, exchanged curt greetings with his younger brother, who wore a polite but wary expression. The tension between them was tangible. Then Stannis turned to Barristan, who bowed deeply. "Well met, Ser Barristan," said the new king. "You served my brother faithfully for many years. Will you serve me now?" Barristan bowed again. "Aye, your grace. I will. I am sworn to the crown, not merely to the man." Stannis nodded, then raised his voice. "Very good. Now, Lord Stark, show me to the Iron Throne. We will see if any dare oppose me openly." Ned led him into the throne room, where a hush gathered among the courtiers who had assembled, uncertain what to expect. There was no immediate sign of Cersei's loyalists. The dais lay vacant except for the vacant Iron Throne. Stannis ascended the steps, each footstep a clang on the stone, and came to stand before the seat of kings. For a moment, he stared at it as though unsure if he truly wanted it. Then, with a determined motion, he turned, faced the assembled watchers, and declared in a clear voice, "I am Stannis of House Baratheon, the first of my name. By all the laws of the realm, I am your king. My elder brother Robert is dead. May the gods grant him peace. The so-called children of Cersei Lannister are bastards, not born of Baratheon blood. Let any who deny my right stand forth now." A breathless silence. No one dared step forward. Many men had no love for Stannis' stern manner, but the legality was irrefutable. He was the rightful heir. And as if to punctuate his claim, the gold cloaks that Ned had stationed around the throne room drew to attention, pikes upright. Some courtiers dropped to their knees. Others bowed stiffly. Renly inclined his head, though not bending his knee fully. Ned watched him carefully, hoping Renly would not cause a scene. Stannis's gaze swept the hall and settled on Ned. "You have done well, Lord Stark, to keep the city in my name. You will continue as my hand. That is my decree." Ned bowed. "Your grace honors me. I will serve faithfully." Stannis exhaled, a sound that might have been relief. "Then let us begin. We must bring Cersei Lannister to justice, as well as her brother Jaime and her father Tywin. The throne will not be secure until the realm sees them punished." He turned toward the dais, ran a hand along the twisted metal of the Iron Throne's arm. "Ser Barristan, call forth the lords who are present. Let them bear witness to what transpires next." The old knight bowed and moved to do so. Ned, stepping forward, spoke quietly to Stannis. "If you mean to storm Maegor's Holdfast, your grace, I beg you to consider the children inside." Stannis scowled. "I have considered it. Let the queen yield. If she dares harm the children, it will only damn her further. We will capture the Holdfast by force if she will not surrender. I have no more patience for her defiance." Ned's heart lurched. "Give me leave to try once more to parley with her, your grace. If we can avoid bloodshed." Stannis waved a hand in brusque dismissal. "Fine. One more attempt, but only one. If she refuses, my men will tear that Holdfast apart brick by brick." He cast a glance at Melisandre, who watched with a faint smile. "We have means at our disposal." Ned did not like the glint in the Red Woman's eyes. He wondered what sort of means Stannis alluded to, but he only bowed his head. "I will go at once." So Ned departed, accompanied by a small retinue, crossing the castle wards until they came once again to the barricaded drawbridge of Maegor's Holdfast. The watchers parted to let him approach. Armed men on the walls glared down, crossbows trained. Ned called out that he wished to speak with the queen under a banner of truce. After a tense pause, Lancel Lannister's voice responded. Then the drawbridge lowered a fraction, and Ned was allowed to cross, though 2 crossbowmen flanked him, arrows knocked. Inside the courtyard of the Holdfast, the tension was thick enough to choke on. Lancel led him to the main hall. Cersei stood there, flanked by Ser Marintrant and Ser Boros Blunt of the Kingsguard, all in white armor with gilded lions. Myrcella clung to her mother's skirts, eyes red from crying. Tommen, also present, looked terrified, close to tears. Cersei herself was haggard, her golden hair disheveled, one arm bandaged where Baelish's blade had cut her. Her face, however, was still regal with fury. Ned stopped several paces away, forcing himself to keep his voice calm. "Your Grace, although that title no longer applies, I come on behalf of King Stannis to offer terms. Surrender, relinquish the Holdfast, and no harm will come to you or your children." Cersei's mouth curled into a sneer. "You mean King Stannis, that humorless wraith who would see me executed as soon as he sets eyes on me? You are more naive than I thought, Stark. These men remain loyal to me. They will defend me to the death. Is that not so?" She looked to Trant and Blunt, who gave stiff nods. Trant growled, "Aye, my queen, to the death." Ned gestured to the children. "Let them go, at least. Spare them this siege. You must know it's hopeless. Stannis is within the walls now. His men will starve you out or storm this place. You cannot prevail." Cersei's eyes flashed with tears of rage. "You want me to hand over my children to your butcher? I know what justice awaits me. Nothing you say will convince me otherwise. The city might follow you now, but my father will not. Jaime will not. They will come, and this false king of yours will feel the lion's claws." Ned exhaled. "Do not doom your children by clinging to illusions. Tywin is far to the west. Jaime is likely with him. They cannot storm King's Landing in a day. And if the Holdfast falls, your men will be overrun. I do not wish to see Tommen or Myrcella suffer." Cersei's face twisted. "Yet you keep my Joffrey in a cell. You call him a bastard. You tear our family apart. And now you want me to trust in your mercy? You Starks are fools of the highest order." Myrcella clutched her mother's hand, tears silently streaming down her face. Tommen bit his lip, trembling. Ned looked at them with pity. They were not like Joffrey so far as he knew. They were just children, the same age as Sansa and Arya. Softly, he said, "Your children need not die, Cersei. You know Stannis's reputation. He is harsh, yes, but not sadistic. If you yield, he may show you clemency." Cersei laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You know nothing of your precious new king, Stark. You think him more merciful than Robert? Or you? I'd rather die on my feet than live at his feet. And I will not hand my children over to be hostages." Ned steeled himself, recalling Stannis's words. This was her last chance. "If you persist in this madness, Stannis will order the holdfast stormed. There will be blood. I cannot promise who will survive that. The children could be killed in the fighting or by an enraged soldier. I beg you, do not let that happen." For a moment, something flickered in Cersei's eyes, fear, perhaps, or maternal love overshadowing her pride. She glanced at Myrcella and Tommen, her lips trembling. Then her expression hardened again into cold resolve. "I will not be a prisoner, and neither will my children. Leave now, or I will have your men shot where they stand." Ned realized there was no swaying her. She was cornered and dangerous. "As you will," he said sadly. "I have tried." He turned, not wanting to see the triumph on her face. When he crossed the drawbridge, it was lifted behind him in a chorus of clattering chains. He stood among his men, dread pressing on his heart. The queen was not bluffing. She would fight to the last breath, children at her side. He returned to the throne room where Stannis paced at the base of the Iron Throne, jaw set like stone. Melisandre hovered near, silent as a looming shadow. Renly, Baelish, Varys, Barristan, and a knot of lords looked on. Ned walked in, face grim, and said, "She refuses. She will not yield." Stannis's face betrayed neither surprise nor mercy. "Then so be it. Lord Alistair Florent, muster your men around the holdfast. Prepare to storm it. If the queen resists, cut down her guards." He paused, his voice dropping into a growl. "Take the children alive if possible, but do not let them slip away." Ned spoke, voice urgent, "Your Grace, at least try to starve them out first. Give her time to reconsider. An assault could lead to the children's deaths." Stannis's glare snapped to Ned, but he gave a curt nod. "We will wait a day or two. No more. I will not let the city see me hesitate while a woman cowers in a corner of my castle, calling herself queen." Melisandre stepped forward, her voice low and smooth. "The night is dark and full of terrors, Your Grace. A swift victory spares more blood in the end. Fire cleanses all." Ned felt a chill. He suspected the Red Priestess would push for a more brutal approach. But for now, Stannis had set a limit. 2 days. If Cersei did not yield by then, the holdfast would be assaulted and the outcome might be a slaughter. Ned could already imagine the small bodies lying broken on the floor. It turned his stomach. He turned away from Melisandre's unsettling gaze, crossing to Renly. The younger Baratheon looked tense, his brow furrowed. Ned spoke in a low voice, "You see how it is. If she does not yield, there will be blood. I only hope your father's house in the Stormlands can send more men soon. Once Tywin hears of this, he'll be at our gates." Renly nodded, but his face was clouded. "Yes, the lords of the Stormlands will gather, but some may be slower than others to swear to Stannis." He hesitated. "Ned, do you truly believe Stannis will be a good king? Men fear him more than love him." Ned's expression was grim. "He is the lawful king. That is enough for me. Better a stern but lawful man than a bastard incest spawn who thrives on cruelty, or a queen who'd kill her own children before relinquishing her power. Let us hope Stannis proves capable of mercy. Now is not the time for fracturing the Baratheon name." Renly cast his gaze downward, a swirl of emotion flickering. But in the end, he offered only a quiet nod. Together, they watched as Stannis gave more orders to the men gathering in the throne room. Baelish slipped away silently as if the conversation bored him. Varys lingered, expression inscrutable. Barristan listened with stoic resolve. And so the city braced itself for a new siege, but one that took place entirely within the Red Keep, a siege of one fortress tower by another. The day dragged on, the queen refusing all parley, the watchers stationed in a ring around Maegor's holdfast. From his vantage on the ramparts, Ned sometimes saw glimpses of Tommen's blonde head in a window or heard Myrcella's muffled sobs echo against the courtyard. Cersei was no doubt cursing them all, biding her time in hopes that Tywin would arrive like a vengeful storm. Beyond the city walls, Stannis' men patrolled the roads. Scouts brought word that a larger Baratheon host was indeed marching from the Stormlands. If fortune favored them, the capital would soon have enough defenders to repel any Lannister assault. But fortune was a fickle companion, Ned well knew. At sunset, Ned returned to the Tower of the Hand where Sansa and Arya waited anxiously. He tried to maintain a calm front for them, telling them that King Stannis was here, that order would soon be restored. Yet in his heart, he could not quell the dread. War had begun in the Riverlands with Tywin's raids. A lesser war smoldered within the Red Keep, threatening to explode at any moment. Beyond that, 1,000 perils might still descend. The memory of Robert's last breath, of him saying "kill them all," haunted Ned like a ghost of ill omen. Night fell, the second night since Stannis' arrival. Cersei had given no further sign of surrender. Stannis, impatient, demanded a plan of assault for dawn. Ned spent hours with Barristan, mapping the holdfast's corridors, analyzing how to minimize bloodshed. They decided to send a small squad of elite men up from an adjacent rampart using ropes to slip in through upper windows if possible. Another group would use siege ladders at the courtyard walls. The plan was to converge on the hall, subdue the Queen's men, and seize the children. It was a dangerous gambit riddled with risk. Stannis wanted to lead them personally, but Ned convinced him that a king should not climb siege ladders in the dark. Ser Davos Seaworth, newly arrived from Dragonstone, offered to coordinate the infiltration. In the last hours of darkness, Ned lay awake, unable to sleep. Outside, the wind moaned across the walls. He thought of the day he rode south with Robert, leaving Winterfell behind. He recalled the crypts of his forefathers, the chill hush of the north, the memory of his father's execution at the hands of the Mad King, the quiet vow he made to preserve honor at all costs. Now that vow had led him here, to the brink of an internal assault on a queen and her captive children. He wondered if the cost of truth was too high. But he could not have done otherwise. Lies only festered. He rose before dawn, dressed in mail, and strapped on his sword. Jory Castle and a handful of loyal northerners joined him. Together, they walked the courtyard. A cold hush lay over the Red Keep. The sky was a dark indigo, turning faintly gray near the horizon. Stannis' men assembled, grim-faced, with rope and grapnels. Davos checked their gear, speaking in low tones. Barristan stood at the ready, a white cloak swirling about his shoulders, a sword in hand. Renly had argued against the plan, but Stannis overruled him, so he stood off to one side, arms folded in quiet disapproval. Ned looked toward the silhouettes of Maegor's holdfast, barely visible in the pre-dawn gloom. Torches glimmered on the walls. He could picture the children inside, possibly clinging to one another in fear while their mother readied them for the final stand. Perhaps Cersei whispered venom into their ears about the Starks, the Baratheons, and the traitors who had stolen Joffrey away. He prayed it would not end in a massacre. At the appointed hour, the infiltration began. Men with grappling hooks moved like silent shades across the rampart, slinging ropes over the holdfast's parapets. Another group waited with ladders, ready to rush the courtyard at the first sign of confusion. Ned, heart pounding, took his position with Barristan near the courtyard gate, 24 men at their backs, prepared to charge in once the alarm was raised. Minutes crawled by. Then a faint shout sounded from within the holdfast. Ned braced himself. Another shout. The twang of a crossbow. A distant clang of steel on steel. More shouts, building to a crescendo. Barristan lifted his sword. Now he bellowed. At that signal, the men with ladders rushed forward, slamming them against the courtyard wall. Ned joined them, CLA, bearing up behind the first wave, forcing aside the memory that he was no young knight. Each rung seemed fraught with danger. A crossbow bolt whizzed overhead, missing him by inches. He reached the top to see a swirl of chaos below. Several of Stannis' men had made it inside. They fought with Lannister guards, the clash of steel echoing in the cramped courtyard. A figure in white armor toppled from a parapet, letting out a wail as he fell into the moat. Another crossbowman fired, striking a Baratheon soldier in the shoulder. Ned scrambled down the inside of the wall, sword raised, scanning for any sign of the children. The courtyard was lit by sputtering torches. Shadows flickered, figures lunged and parried. Barristan Selmy joined Ned, swinging his sword with lethal grace. "This way," the old knight called, gesturing toward a narrow passage that led deeper into the holdfast. They pressed forward with 6 men, stepping over a Lannister corpse. One of Stannis' knights was pinned to the wall by a crossbow bolt, moaning softly. Ned pushed aside the horror and kept going. Within the holdfast's main hall, they found total pandemonium. The infiltration team led by Davos Seaworth had smashed open a side door, engaging the Queen's men. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Ned spotted Ser Marantrant, battered but alive, crossing swords with a knight from Dragonstone. Flames licked at a tapestry where a torch had toppled, and the smell of smoke bit at Ned's nostrils. Cersei stood near the dais, Myrcella clinging to her side, Tommen behind them. A circle of 4 Lannister guards ringed them, the men refusing to yield even as more intruders poured in. Ned rushed forward, shouting for them to stop, that the children need not be harmed. But the scene erupted in violence. One of Cersei's men loosed an arrow at a Baratheon soldier who collapsed with a gurgle. Another tried to shield Cersei from a spear thrust. The queen shrieked as the spear caught the guard in the throat, spraying blood on the stones. For one horrifying moment, Ned saw Myrcella slip, her foot sliding in the blood. She sprawled onto the floor, terror in her wide green eyes. Tommen cried out for his sister. Cersei snatched up a fallen dagger, her face twisted in an expression of unhinged resolve. Ned realized with a surge of horror that she meant to do what she had threatened, to end the children rather than let them fall into enemy hands. She raised the dagger, turning toward the helpless Myrcella with something like desperation in her eyes. "No!" Ned roared. He lunged forward, hacking aside a Lannister guard who tried to block him. He barreled into Cersei just as she brought the blade down. It tore across Myrcella's arm, drawing a scream of agony but not fatal. Ned slammed into Cersei, knocking her off balance. The dagger clattered from her grip. They tumbled to the floor in a tangle of limbs. She clawed at his face, shrieking curses. Ned pinned her wrist, grappling with her to keep her from retrieving the blade. Meanwhile, Myrcella sobbed, clutching her bleeding arm. Tommen rushed to her side, tears streaming. Barristan Selmy and 2 other men subdued the last Lannister guard, disarming him forcibly. Cersei spat in Ned's face, tried to bite him. Rage flared in Ned's chest. He was half tempted to strike her, but a lifetime of discipline held him back. He twisted her arm behind her back, forcing her face to the floor. "Surrender," he bellowed, panting. "It's over." She let out a ragged cry of fury and heartbreak, tears streaking her cheeks. You ruin everything." She sounded half-mad with grief. The clang of steel faded as the last pockets of resistance were crushed. The holdfast was taken. Ned motioned for the men to secure Cersei's arms. She was dragged upright, struggling all the while, spitting at them. Tommen and Myrcella were gently lifted by Barristan, who called for a maester to attend the girl's bleeding arm. Smoke billowed from the burning tapestry, but a soldier rushed in with a bucket of water to extinguish the flames. At last, the echoes of fighting died down. Bodies littered the hall, battered men moaned in pain. Over it all, Ned could hear the ragged sobs of Myrcella, who stared in horror at her mother. Tommen only whimpered, "Mother, mother," looking lost and pale. Ned turned to Barristan, voice hoarse. "Take the children to the maesters. Keep them safe. I must bring Cersei before King Stannis." Barristan nodded. "Yes, my lord." He guided the children away, ignoring Cersei's shrieking demands that they return them at once. Ned's men dragged Cersei out into the courtyard. The dawn light revealed a scattering of corpses and wounded, but the holdfast was theirs. Cersei's arms were pinned behind her with rope. She looked wild, hair matted, eyes brimming with hatred. Renly Baratheon appeared, taking in the aftermath with a grimace. Stannis strode up with Davos Seaworth at his side, ignoring the blood spattered on the stones. Cersei glared at him. "Traitor," she hissed. "Usurper. You have no right to the throne. My son is the king." Stannis' face was carved from stone. "Your son is a bastard born of incest. By your own admission, your children are not of Baratheon blood." He gave a curt gesture. "Take her to a cell. She shall stand trial for high treason, adultery, the murder of King Robert, and the attempted murder of her own children. If she resists, bind her mouth." Cersei spat at him but could do nothing else as the soldiers hauled her away. The dawn sun crept over the walls, illuminating a courtyard that smelled of smoke and blood. Stannis turned to Ned. "Well done, Lord Hand. It seems the children are alive." Ned nodded. "Yes, Myrcella is hurt, but not gravely. Tommen is uninjured. They are with the maesters now." Stannis grimaced. "Good. That is one complication resolved. I will see them confined but not harmed. As for Joffrey, let him remain in the dungeons. We will hold a tribunal in due time. The realm must witness justice." Ned exhaled, feeling an immense, grim relief. "Then the city is yours, your grace. We can finally quell the turmoil." Stannis lifted his gaze to the keep's ramparts. "Perhaps. But war still looms. Tywin Lannister is out there, likely mustering. I must gather my forces and ride out to meet him soon, or he will lay waste to half the realm." He paused, turning back to Ned. "You will advise me, Lord Hand? The North, the Riverlands, they must be brought into this as well. Our troubles are far from over. Ned bowed. As you command. At least the capital is secure. They stood in the hush amid the wounded groans of the holdfast's courtyard. Ned felt no triumph, only a heavy sorrow. This was not a victory feast. This was the cost of exposing the truth. As he gazed at Stannis' stern profile, at the battered knights, at the bloodied stones, he realized they had all stepped fully into the storm's heart. Honor had demanded that Joffrey's true parentage be known. Yet now that the secret was out, the realm was divided, the Lannisters had been provoked, and war was a near certainty. Still, Ned reminded himself, the children lived. Robert's last wishes were fulfilled, no bastard sat the throne, and the line of succession was made lawful. If it brought war, so be it. He would stand by his honor, come what may. The memory of Robert's jovial grin floated in his mind, mingling with the final scowl of betrayal. Ned closed his eyes for a moment, letting the dawn breeze wash over him. He opened them to see the sun cresting above the city. So began King Stannis' reign, amid smoke and blood, while across the realm men would don armor and march under 100 banners. The War of 5 Kings had been averted in one sense. Joffrey would not crown himself. Yet a different war was brewing. Tywin would never bow so easily, nor would Jaime. The Tyrells, the Martells, who knew where they might stand? Ned looked to the battered doors of Maegor's Holdfast, where Cersei had made her last stand. It was a stark reminder that no victory came without a price. Only time would tell if the realm would heal or burn. For now, he had done all he could to remain faithful to the truth, faithful to the oath he swore to Robert. He turned away from the courtyard, following Stannis back into the Red Keep, duty pressing down on him with every step. In the halls, men bowed to Stannis and cast uncertain glances at Ned. The realm was to be reshaped in this man's image, harsh, righteous, unyielding. Some part of Ned yearned for the quiet snows of Winterfell, free of the poisonous intrigues of court. But the realm needed him, needed the shield of honor to stand between tyranny and chaos. So he walked on, one step after another, beneath the weight of the new king's crown, a crown no less heavy just because it now rested on the right head. And in the quiet corners of the Red Keep, whispers spread. Of how Eddard Stark had unmasked the Lannister bastards, how King Robert had died cursing his queen, how King Stannis had seized the throne in a hush of steel. The common folk watched from a distance, uncertain and fearful. Soon, ravens would fly to every corner of Westeros, bearing the news. There was a new king in King's Landing, and the Lannisters had been unmasked as traitors. War might still come, but at least the lie had been uprooted. For good or ill, the truth had prevailed, and the 7 kingdoms would never be the same.